Welcome to Miss Martin Muses. Welcome to Miss Martin Muses and Pub Crawl, where we are now, I think, on our 9th pub. So it's time to start delving. Everyone's had a few too many, though actually none of us have had any. And we are going to be talking tonight about converts and reverts tonight. And I am very thrilled making his Miss Martin Muses debut, my friend John F. Trent of Bounding into Comics fame. Thank you so much. Welcome to Miss Martin Muses.
Would you like an order of the spiced potatoes? I hear they're very good.
Oh, well, I would be sure to have them. And of course, yes, we are in a pub. We're at a very special pub. Let me put it up here. It is one that I love, one of my personal favorites, none other than The End of the Last Home. John, do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about this pub?
Yeah, so this is the pub from Dragonlance where the heroes of the Lance, I think, if I recall correctly. I mean, it's been a while since I read Dragonlance, it's like high school. Meet, and they actually, I think they flee from here in the very beginning of the first book.
Correct.
And begin their quest to take on the evil dragon Takesis and her dragon army. The inn was actually raised up into the trees to avoid roaming bandits that were coming in and terrorizing the town of Solace. I think during the War of the Lance, it actually is like taken down out of the tree. But after the War of the Lance, another tree is Valenwood, I think is what it's called, is planted, and hopefully they'll be able to put it back up into the tall tree Valenwood again. But they're known for their good ale and their spiced potatoes. In the beginning, it was run by Otik, and it eventually is taken over by Tika and Karaman Majere, two of the main protagonists in the Dragonlance series. Two of my favorites. Really enjoy Karaman. Just got a heart of gold. Might not be the smartest person in the room, but he always is. He's got a really good moral compass on him. He's always looking to do the right thing, even though he does sometimes get manipulated by his brother.
Yes. And I can say I can confirm almost all of this. I love the Dragonlance books. I read them, the first 2 trilogies, for the first time last year, and I certainly have not regretted it. They are fantastic.
Yeah,
And
I love the Dragonlance books. Have you read the ones about Mina too that continue after like Takesis steals the world?
Not yet. After the War of the Twins. Is it? Yeah, it is called the War of the Twins. The
Yeah, War
Twins
of the
trilogy.
Twins.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that's
fantastic.
where
I love that trilogy. That's probably my favorite one. Is the Twins trilogy.
I love it. And it's just like a lot of fantasy series. At first, you're like, I'm not so sure. And then there's that moment where it clicks and you're like, I would die for each and every one of these characters. I love them. Even the bad guy, even Raceland. But he's got the
Raceland isn't such a bad guy at the end of that, though. He is very humbled and realizes what he's done is wrong.
Yeah, he's probably one of the most complex characters. I love him. And of course, I love all of them. And what a better pub inn to live in and stay in. Chris Santa's here. I'm down for some potatoes. I tend to do more eating and drinking, and more eating than drinking, rather. In pubs, we have Meteor Advocate Tim. Oh, Steek says it is. Hello, Steek. He said hi to both you and me. Also known for curvy battle barmaids.
Yeah, I'd say Tika qualifies as that. Yep.
Yes, Tika's awesome. Hi, everyone, says Puddin' Tame. Applause from Seregian. I'm going backwards here. I think I got everyone. Corey Cochran is here. Hello. Thank you, everyone. Though, even though we love here at Miss Martin Muses, we love Dragonlance, our topic tonight is actually converts and reverts. Now, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about what a revert is versus a convert, or if you wanted me to introduce that.
Yeah, I can talk about it if you like.
Right.
Yeah, so basically a revert is someone who was probably a cradle Catholic, raised Catholic from a child, baptized as an infant, strays from the faith, usually after confirmation, and becomes worldly, puts other things above God, is living a very worldly life, not really practicing the way that Christ taught. But then you eventually have Christ is, as he says in the Gospels, he goes out and finds that lost sheep. You're basically the prodigal son. He welcomes you back when you come back. You find your way. He brings you back home. You find your way back home. He's there welcoming you, and you go to confession. You get all your ducks in order. In my case, I had to receive the sacrament of matrimony because I got married outside the church, but go to confession regularly, and now you're back in being a member in good standing of the body of Christ.
The prodigal son.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, and a convert, which is what I am, is somebody. It can be anybody, frankly. It can be someone with no religion. It can be someone from a different religion. But most of the time, when we talk about converts to Catholicism, it is other Christians that join the Catholic Church by choice. Usually, a mature decision when you come to it on your own. So instead of being raised in the faith, you learn about it and you choose it and you embrace it. And I always consider that I was raised in a Protestant denomination and I don't reject anything. I was taught, okay, maybe a tiny few doctrinal things, but for the most part, they taught me about Jesus and all of that. And then I got really exposed to what the church taught about certain things and certain aspects that just weren't present there. And so it caused me to ask for reception into the Catholic Church. If you're already a Christian, it's a lot easier, if you will, than if you're not, because the instruction takes a lot longer. But either way, it's somebody that was not born, not a cradle. And so that's me. So I never actually went on the big rebellion stage. Many people do, but I was not one of them. Steek says, I am an open-minded atheist who thinks reading the Bible just might do some people good. Yeah, amen. Chrysanth, oh wow, I guess revert describes me. I still did my praying when I fell out, but I stopped going to mass and not other good things. Sarah Jane, I'm a recovered. Okay, yes. People that leave the church sometimes will use that term. All right. Do you want to share some of your story, John Trent? Share as much or as little as you like.
Yeah, sure. So I was baptized at Our Lady of Angels Church in Woodbridge. Went to the school there, Aquinas, from kindergarten through 8th grade. Probably towards the end of 8th grade, going into high school, didn't go to a Catholic high school, started going to a public school. I was heavily involved in travel soccer, and we really started just putting soccer in front of everything that we did, including going to mass on Sundays. And my family just kind of started worshiping soccer, if that makes sense. That's what we were doing all of the time, was going to soccer practice, going to soccer games, because my sister played soccer. My dad was coaching her. I was on a travel team, like I said, and that was kind of what we were doing. And then obviously just kind of being exposed to a lot of what was going on in public high school that I had no idea, coming from kindergarten through 8th grade Catholic school, just being exposed to a lot of those kind of worldly ways, and really just kind of straying. And that continued through college. And probably in college, though, I stopped, like, obviously I found a new God to worship, and it was basically like the fraternity and the college lifestyle, I guess, a big college lifestyle. And but after graduating from college, I started like getting into like libertarian politics, and I was worshiping that for the most part, and was doing that for probably a couple years. And then started dating my wife, who, and I wasn't going to church or anything, and but she was going to a Bible church, kind of like non-denominational Bible church, here in Northern Virginia. And I started attending services with her, and basically she kind of like laid down the law, like, are you serious about this? I want you to be serious about this. This is something that's serious to me. And so I showed up out of the blue for one of the services I knew she was going to attend to, and that kind of like convinced her that I was going to do that. And we started going to we started going to a number of Protestant services on Sundays for a couple of years. Obviously, we eventually got married. We got married in a Protestant service. We started going to a Salvation Army church, and then we moved to a Baptist church. And then eventually my papa passed away, and went up for his funeral, and it was a Catholic service, Catholic mass, and I have no idea what the priest said during the mass, or I can't recall anything that he said, but I just know like whatever he said, it moved me. Like I was moved with his words, and I started like looking up where the local Catholic churches were around where we lived, and I was like, I told my wife, I was like, let's start going to a Catholic mass. I really want to go there. I'm just not feeling these Protestant churches. There's just something missing. It just didn't feel right to me, and so I found the church that I attend now, and we started going to masses there. I don't know, 3-4 years ago now. It was kind of like a couple years before COVID, and um, started figuring out what we needed to do to start receiving Holy Communion. Basically, I tried to go to confession, and the priest was like, "Are you still like? Do you still not have the sacrament of matrimony? You shouldn't be here anymore. You shouldn't be in here. You need to
Oh
get the
my.
sacrament of matrimony." So I had some good priests there that gave me some good advice. So I started going to pre I guess it's not pre-Cana, but it's basically a pre-Cana class. But they call it something else that I can never remember what it's called.
It's well, when you go to get
Convalidation.
convalidation, yeah,
Yeah,
convalidation.
convalidation classes, and we did that for like a year, and it was like in the middle of COVID, and so we went through that, and eventually received the sacrament of matrimony in February 2021, a couple months after our first daughter was born. So and then yeah, we attend mass every Sunday. Attend mass on all the holy days of obligation. I actually went to mass on Friday, this past Friday, for the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, for the reparation of all the blasphemies that are taking place in the United States here today. So I pray my rosary every day now. Always trying to find more about the faith, and learn about like a lot of the teachings of the church, and really kind of just learn more about it. But that's kind of my story, away from the faith and back to the faith.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's
Oh, and
a
then my wife has converted now too.
oh,
So
so
I guess
she
that's a
came.
big thing too. So as we were going through convalidation classes, I was also going to RCIA classes with her.
Oh, okay. Well, there
So,
you go. I mean, you said a year for convalidation. That's longer than most. Was it because of
well,
COVID?
yeah, I think so. It was mainly the
Yeah.
COVID stuff, because we like the COVID thing just like really messed a lot of things up,
Hmm.
with that in that case. But they're pretty. It was just really thorough too. I mean, you take some like 120 plus questionnaire, and then have monthly meetings going over the questions, and then making sure everything is good. And we were also kind of new to the parish at the time, so they didn't really know us. So
Sure.
probably wanting to get to know us and just make sure that we were like doing the right thing.
Sure. And there's I like the fact that things are very thorough and very open, and we're allowed to take our time with these things because you don't want to rush into many decisions, and it does take time to form conscience. I just wanted to, for those listening, when we talk about the sacrament of matrimony versus marriage, sometimes that it there's a meaning to the sacrament of marriage, and I am going to be Catholic explaining the seven sacraments coming up. So I will say that because the sacrament is, well, it's a sacrament of matrimony. Other churches do not have it as a sacrament, so we do distinguish between the two there. But before we go on, Stieg, I knew this was going to happen when you said soccer, when God became soccer, because yeah, and Meteor Advocate Timon is
Yeah,
Brazilian, and of course
yeah,
football, it is their religion, and of course Steek says I can relate to that. I put soccer ahead of pretty much everything for a few years too. Which position did you play?
yeah. So I played midfield for the most part
Oh,
in middle school, and on my travel team in high school. But on the actual high school team, I played defense, and I really like defense better because I don't know. I was playing like outside left mid, and I hated it. Defense was a lot more my expertise. I could see the whole field. I could kind of like dictate how I wanted plays to start and stuff like that. And really kind of, it sounds weird to be a playmaker from defense, but on my high school team, I kind of felt like I was a little bit of a playmaker from the back end, and it was a big shutdown guy too. I was always I try and go after the biggest guy that the other team had.
Nice. And of course,
Their best player.
yeah, I love watching. Well, I was raised calling it football, being from a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
girl in Ireland, and I always loved to watch the European soccer. The I've gotten into the Premier League a lot over the past few years, and the Euros and the World Cup. I mean, the world stops during the Euros. Yes, and Stieg is a striker, or he played as a striker. It's a position where you get beaten up a lot. Yes.
that's why the Italian striker Inzaghi was always always getting called offsides all the time because he's always trying to cheat. But
Yeah.
he scored a lot. He scored a lot.
And meteor advocate Timon, John, who is your football? Yes, I hear you. I hear you, Timon. Who's your football hero, aka soccer hero? Do you
So
have?
I guess like growing up, we had a team here in DC called still do called DC United. I don't really watch them at all anymore, but I really like Marco Echeverri. He wore number 10. He was like a really good playmaker, center midfielder. Maybe like I guess now you might call him an attacking midfielder, maybe like a low striker, depending on what kind of um, formation you have. But I guess once I got into college and I was really watching a lot of European leagues, I really liked Alessandro Nesta, who played for AC Milan, wore number 13, big defensive back. And I just really liked the way he played. And he was like just a shutdown guy, played for the Italian national team, was just probably one of the best defensive players I'd ever seen. Really, really good.
Cool. Well, there you are. Um, and because God and football often goes together, especially if you're from Brazil or a South American country, to go back to,
Yeah.
there was something you said that struck me. You said something was missing. What was missing that made you want to look into going back to mass? Did you find out what that something was?
I think the true presence, honestly. The Protestant masses don't have communion, um, or not. They don't even have mass. It's the service, I guess. The Protestant services don't have communion, and when they did have like a kind of communion, it was literally just a piece of bread and like some grape juice. So I definitely felt that the true presence of Christ in the Eucharist was missing, whether that was him being present in the tabernacle um, before consecration takes place during the Mass, or obviously during consecration and receiving his body and blood during Holy Communion.
Yeah, and that struck me because that was actually what started me on my journey when I was in college. I went to mass with some friends for a very shallow reason. The Protestant service just always went on forever, and we were all hanging out there like, "We gotta go to mass." Like, "Okay, I'll tag along." And then I was like, what is that? What is that?" And they were all like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, Jesus is there. I mean, I was like, it was like I was
Yeah,
crazy, and I was like, after mass, I was like, There's a presence there. It's there." And they went, and just like it wasn't even anything. They were like, "Oh yeah, that was a Eucharistic chapel. It was right behind the altar, and all that." And they're like, "Yeah, oh sure. I guess we're kind of used to it." And I was like, "What is this?" And and they were very matter of fact, and they answered, "It's like, well, of course, the true presence." And it's like, "Well, that's not in the Bible." It's like, "Well, actually, it is John 6, and all this, and then the history." And they just very simply explained it and went on with their lives. And my life was ruined because I wasn't the same after that.
I don't know if that's ruined. It sounds
When
like
I
it was
say
a good
ruined,
thing.
you know what I mean. Ruined from a certain point of view because
Yeah,
it's like I couldn't walk away from it then. And frankly had to make a decision to say either I'm going to follow this or I'm not going to be a Christian at all because I felt like I couldn't do it halfway anymore, especially once I was able to study it. And of course, it was there. It was right there in the Bible, but it wasn't emphasized. And if it's not there, I think the myth is that everyone reads the Bible. It's like no, everyone tends to read the parts of the Bible they like or that emphasizes their beliefs, and that's very human to do. So
yeah.
it really changed things. So I just had to follow my conscience right back into the church. Wait, uh, are are you correct about this? Meteor, I didn't know this about you. I thought you were cradle Catholic, unless I'm misunderstanding a pun here. But yeah, so the real presence was a big, raised as a. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
raised as a Cardicus. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Help me out here. So yeah, and here's the thing is I like to emphasize very clearly that when you're baptized, you're baptized. So even Catholics, we I've heard people say I was baptized Catholic, which is kind of right, but it's like it makes it sound like there's different baptisms in different denominations. It's like no, it's one baptism, and the church accepts a valid baptism from other communities. So, for example, I did
Yeah, it's
not.
called the Trinitarian Rite.
Yeah, yeah, the Trinitarian.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you, Steve. Everyone brings the jokes. I was baptized, but the priest stopped when I caught fire. Nice priest. No, I know what you mean. Yes,
Priest
I
probably would
know.
have continued. It was a good
Yeah,
priest. He would have
it's
kept
like it's
going.
working. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
working.
working.
Yeah, it has to be done in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. So even if you
You use
want to,
water.
for example, if you come to perhaps a more mature form of faith, or if you decide you want to join the church, they will not baptize you. Not only is it something that it just won't happen. They cannot
It
because
depends. So if you don't have proof and you don't like have like I've seen them do that just in case, right? If you don't have like a proof, but if you have a proof of like if the Protestant church or whatever that did baptize you, you usually try and contact them, and they'll do it, and you try and get a witness and stuff like that. I know because I went through this with my wife. She knows, she remembers being baptized and everything like that, but we couldn't find the proof. But I think we got a written document from her grandfather, and that was good. So she didn't have to get baptized again, but I know that they will do it just for good measure in case there's a degree of doubt.
yeah. And to be clear, when they do that, it's not a rebaptism, or it is what we call conditional baptism, and there's
Right.
a certain formula. So it is not done with the intention of rebaptizing. Yes. Uh-huh. Yes,
Yes.
baptized and had my confirmation too. I did a okay, yes. Um and in football as well, how can you go wrong? Yeah. So some of the harder teachings, if you will, probably weren't as hard for you being a revert, but maybe for your wife being a convert. Say, for example, some of the teachings about the communion of saints and of the special. The hyperdulia that we have towards the Blessed Virgin Mary. Was that a struggle for you at all? Or-
No, I didn't have any issues with that. My wife didn't have really any issues with that stuff either. So,
Yeah.
I mean, she kind of like was just like, "Oh, I never knew that, and I never understood that." So that makes sense a lot when it was explained. So she kind of picked it up pretty easily. She didn't have any real issues with it.
Yeah. Which also emphasizes is that sometimes people, I think, underestimate that what they hear about some of the church teachings, it's not really what the church teaches. I remember being told all sorts
Right.
of wacky stuff, and it was enough that what I saw my Catholic friends doing in Ireland, I was like, "Oh yeah, they're doing this wacky stuff." And then you realize, "Oh no, 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 it's this, and this, the community of saints." You got and what we're doing with it, and usually once it's explained, it it just makes sense. There is a knowledge gap, a little bit with it, maybe a teeny
Yeah.
dose of prejudice with the history that we have, but, yeah, because Aunt
Yes.
said yeah, I have a family who are born agains, they got kinda touchy about things. My aunt got mad at me for having a rosary and braided me for worshiping Mary and wouldn't hear a word,
Yeah.
against her. Yeah, and that
I
happens.
think I think that's what it's more likely when you even try, like, you want to talk about an education gap. I guess I think it has like a lot of times when you try and engage. I find myself trying to engage with people, they kind of shut down, and they're not listening. So
Yeah.
uh, they don't want to hear what you have to say. So you might not be the right messenger. It might not be the right time, but it's, I mean, well, they're usually saying that you're worshiping Mary as God, and it's just not true. So
Yeah. And part of that has to do with the differences that about what worship and prayer is, because
Right.
it was even part of the Jewish tradition, especially I'm thinking more now things like praying for the dead and the like, and this whole idea of the communion of saints. It was very firmly established from the very beginning, when you start studying history, 'cause I was a history major, and that also ruined everything for me because they don't have those prejudices, at least as far as the facts go, about what the Christian church was, what the Catholic Church was from the beginning, and so it was very, very recently that it was even challenged, and you would even find people like Martin Luther that he would be like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 wait, don't you touch Mary. Wait, what's going on?" You know? He might have had
Right.
some, yeah, different ideas about it, but it's a very new and recent idea, and I found that once I found out that Mary is the Ark of the New Covenant, the new Eve, and the woman clothed with the sun in Revelation 12, it's just so clear. It's like,
Right.
"Oh,"
She's
and
the woman who stomps on devil's head, serpent's head.
yeah, in Genesis 3:15, and
Yeah.
when you look at how what the Jews were doing with the Ark of the Covenant in the Old Testament, that was not idolatry, and it's like, oh, everything is fulfilled from the old is being fulfilled in the new.
I mean, they
Um,
built a temple.
mhm. Well, yeah, that too, and then, yeah, they were saying, like, "What about the statues and all that?" And I'm like, "Have you seen the Ark of the Covenant? Watch Indiana Jones."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and again,
Yeah.
it's a cognitive dissonance that I have found. Most people,
Yeah.
personally, I have found, have not been too cranky
I
about it. Usually they're just genuinely curious. And when there is hostility, I have found, what's the question behind the question? What are you really mad
right.
about? Usually has something to do with a bad memory or, uh, you know, there are such a thing as mean nuns. I think it got exaggerated, but yeah, I
Yeah.
remember there was someone I ran into that a nun berated someone for like having really bad acne and said she wasn't cleaning her face right. I mean, just things like that that caused a great deal
Hmm.
of shame. Now,
Right.
I'm just saying there's usually something behind it. To it. See, born again people tend to overcompensate and be extra pushy. I've noticed, like they are trying to catch up all at once. It can be, and also sometimes it's over enthusiasm.
They could just be stubborn too. I mean, I'm stubborn, so I get it.
Yeah, and it's a constant struggle for me to keep
Yeah.
humility, and when I say that, not just about religion, but just in general, it is
Oh yeah. Same here.
and that's why I keep telling people that's why we go to confession so often. We have to talk it over. We have to examine our consciences, and you examine your conscience
Yeah,
in the
every night.
evening, and sometimes in the morning, or is it more of a morning praise thing? But you need to do that to keep yourself honest because we're all human. Meter advocate Timon says, let me rephrase it. I was baptized as a Lutheran because of my Germanic side of my family, and then later my mom and her three sons adhered to my father's family religion. Oh, wow. And then I did not know that. Wow.
So, like, I don't understand. What is a spiritist? Is that some kind of
Spiritist,
pagan? Is
um,
that
I'm not entirely sure, or is it like a Unitarian thing? I've never heard of that, but I don't know too much about
okay?
that. It could be
Yeah,
also
I'm not
maybe
familiar with
something
them.
local to there. I will just admit I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. Good grief, my cousin made rosaries for people, and she was Methodist. Says Puddin' Tame Elf. Yeah. Well, it depends. It depends. I have found that the more that there is understanding about it, the less hostility there is.
From what I
Sometimes it's
understand, that Muslims have a deep devotion to Mary.
that is true.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's why you'll sometimes see them be called Miriam it's something that you might see. We have more in common than we don't. It's just a matter of we need to talk to each other. That's so nice. I want to try to make rosaries, but I'm not crafty at all, says Chrysanthia. And there's many cool places, and there is a long tradition of the rosary. I did Catholic explain the rosary. In one of mine, it's a very beautiful prayer, and the prettier you make them, it's not a vanity thing. It's not an idolatrous thing. It's just a way of giving an act of love to our spiritual mother.
Well,
That's the other.
beauty
Sorry.
beauty done right points you upward. So yeah.
Precisely, yes, and that's another thing. Why do you Jesus gave Mary to us on the cross, son, behold your mother, behold your son,
Right.
woman, behold your son, behold your mother, and that rhymes with what if on taken in itself, some people might be, well, wait a second, he was only talking to John. It's like, or was he? But you look at Revelation 12, and it says all that believe in Jesus are her children. So
No,
it
tradition has always taught that he was giving her to all of us.
that yes,
Yeah.
but you can also prove it using scripture. Yeah, a sola
Yeah.
scriptura reading of it is it's not the full.
I mean,
And when
Mary's
we
there. Mary's there in the upper room when they receive the Holy Spirit in
Mhm.
Pentecost too. So
Yeah, she's present. In all of that. Oh, she's telling us, oh gosh, God bless her. I know her. Yes, Julie was really creative and crafty. She unfortunately caught COVID during the first wave and passed away.
oh,
Yes. Yeah, she was a lovely soul, and may she rest in peace. Um, that's one example. Another one is the papacy.
yeah, the
What are
papacy
you
is a big one.
Yeah, for you or for your wife?
Oh no, just I don't think it's not really. I mean, I guess in like the current day, what we have now is it's like I've even heard this from priests that he like Pope Francis kind of like muddles things up. He's not very clear when he's addressing the press, and he can like they like to take his thing like take things out of context about what he's saying. Obviously, the suppression of the Latin Mass that he's engaged in, but I don't know. I'm still kind of I feel like my job in that is just it's not it's you got to say the story in your prayer, right? That's not really in my control to really do anything about it. You just kind of pray, and Holy Spirit will guide him, guide the church,
Yeah.
um, and will lead us on the right path. He's not going to lead us astray. Um, he's going to guide us. So that's kind of how I kind of look at that from my perspective, and it's really more about like local like your local priests and how they're leading, and you can actually talk to them and give them advice, and they give you advice, um, and go that way, and then your local bishop and everything like that. So I don't know. That's kind of how I look at a lot of that stuff. And I mean, I do read some of that stuff, but I also feel like I'm just so ignorant on a lot of it, and it's just kind of it really is kind of above my station.
Above your pay grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. The papacy was a huge thing for me, mainly because as a historian, you're sitting there seeing people like, Alexander the Sixth and some popes that were very worldly and
Yeah.
really bad popes.
Princes
Yes. And
in
they
the
would have
Machiavellian sense.
they would have their they would make their sons cardinals, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
but when you realize that the church is teaching on infallibility has nothing to do with the state of the soul of the man that is holding the office. It is the office to which we're referring. And when Jesus gives the keys to Peter, I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the power of death, the power of Hades shall not prevail against it. I will give to you the keys of the kingdom. And whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. And the keys are very significant because Peter is the only person of the apostles that was given the keys. And then you see that the apostolic succession continued. We have been so blessed in my lifetime with John Paul II and then Benedict XVI. They were giants. And so Francis has been difficult, but it's not shaken my faith because when he's speaking on matters of faith and morals, he is solid,
Yeah, he's pretty rock solid.
very rock solid, just like
Yeah.
what the Pope's supposed to be. Unfortunately, I think that his prudence is what we have
Yeah,
the
and his clarity on when he's like basically doing like the airplane talks or whatever.
Mhm.
And then the and I also think that the reporters I think they intentionally take things out of context, and then I also think they intentionally mistranslate what he's saying too. So I do think there's some of
Yeah,
that that tries to again muddy those waters.
yeah, and when you keep in mind that for some reason the Holy Spirit wanted him to be the Pope at this time, but this unlike a great deal of popes. He was not a very international man before, and his when you talk about mistranslation, he's the first pope I can think of in quite a while that is not fluent in several languages. So when he is speaking, if they're speaking in English or it's going through a translator, he really only speaks Spanish and Italian
Right.
comfortably. So that's also something to keep in mind, which is unfortunate. And maybe I'm hoping the next pope, they might think a little harder about the fact that, while it's good to have a man that's solid theologically for this day and age, we need to have someone that is savvy with the press and understands the languages. Chrisant says, I always believe that God gives us the popes we need at that time. Having a pope suppress older ways might be the thing to revitalize them, or maybe I'm crazy. Yeah, I think the only head scratcher I really have with Francis is his what he's been trying to do, the extraordinary form. Have you noticed it seems like it's not working too well? It's almost like the Holy Spirit's pushing back on him a little bit. And it's
Yeah.
not, there's some places where unfortunately, some bishops were like, yes, we never liked it to begin with. But I'll tell
Right.
you what, there's more that are like, well, can we have some clarity? So you can still go to the extraordinary form of the mass, but it definitely was not prudent, in my opinion, because that's not needed. It's like, wow, what's the needs of the church right now? All those people that like to go to that mass in Latin, those are the people we need to pick on. It's it's different. Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
he yeah. He's given us a question here. Meteor Advocate Timon is explaining Spiritists follow the teachings of Allan Kardec with an interpretation of the gospel through spiritualism. Okay, sounds like maybe a new age thing. Spiritists believe that we are immortal spirits that temporarily inhabit the physical bodies for several necessary incarnations to attain moral and intellectual improvement. Oh, okay, thank you for the clarification. Um, so it sounds to me like you, you said that your wife and all that you all were just kind of cool with it once you saw it. And was there anything, I guess I should ask you, that was a stumbling block that you might want to share?
Not really. I mean, so my wife was always, I guess she told me that she was always taught in the Baptist churches that she attended that the man is the head of the household, and so that was like really easy for her to kind of convert once I made that decision and truly became the head of the household and did that. So no, we haven't like there's not any like real. I mean, obviously, I have my own faults that are stumbling blocks that I
Yeah.
that I confess and I struggle with. We all have our those thorns. Even St. Paul talked about the thorn that he was had, and I think there's a I think it was I think it's St. Francis of Assisi. I want to say I might be wrong on this, but he said he was so afflicted on one point that he had to like throw himself in a pricker bush to have the pain take over, so he wouldn't be sitting in his thoughts. I think it was St. Francis of
That
Assisi.
was definitely Saint Francis, and I'll tell you
Yeah,
something about him. He wasn't the little bird singing, loving
yeah.
hippie that he's portrayed as. St. Francis was crazy in a good way, but I always say St. Francis would have hated my guts. He was not a fun man to be around. And yes, he would do that. He'd be like, "No, I'm gonna sin," and jump in thistles and jump in snow and
He took Christ's words literally. Chop your hand off to if, to stop yourself from sinning. Right.
yeah. Well, I
So,
don't. Yeah, he didn't quite go that far, but I swear he probably
oh,
would
I
have if
mean,
he.
yeah, yeah. I mean, so that like I that was like I think we had a I think one of our I think our pastors given a homily on that a couple times, and that like I don't know that's just kind of like something. It's like yeah, we all struggle with these like these sins that are struggle. We confess them, but God does give you the grace to get over them. I mean, there's sins that I was maybe had maybe a habit or they were a struggle. I don't know if I say they were a habit. They were just more of a struggle. Like obviously I knew I was they were but they were, and I was trying to stop what they were doing. But I mean now like there's I don't even think about them now. Like those like I don't even have those temptations anymore. Because I've I mean you receive the graces in you receive the graces from the sacrament of reconciliation, sacrament of penance, sacrament of confession, whichever word you like to use, and obviously you get the graces from Holy Communion, and God gives you other graces too when you ask for them. So,
Yeah, it's not us that
um,
does that, it's Christ who lives within us, and that's the other thing is, the emphasis on grace is so strong
yeah,
in the Catholic Church that, sometimes it looks like we're semi-Pelagianists, and sometimes we had gotten accused of that in past, like, we think that our works are doing it, and it's like, no, everything is grace, like, there's nothing without grace, and
yeah,
and
I definitely think that you we can get caught up maybe in the works thing, but
Mhm.
yeah, works. What is it? Works are dead without grace. I think something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, faith without works is dead,
Works
and
dead.
yeah,
Yeah,
and vice versa too,
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
and and all of that sort of stuff, but that actually some things that look like works, they're actually not works. So, like, if when you're praying a rosary, it might look like a work because it's
yeah,
something we touch, it has a certain number that we do, but actually what's going on is intense, deep prayer, uh, and
yeah. I
some of
forget
the
someone.
other aspects.
I don't know who it was or what I read. Someone said something about like you can do all like the kind of charity you want, but like if it's coming from a place of pride, it's not really it's not really helping you, right?
You know,
If
it's
you're
not
just doing it for
meritorious.
like self gratification or narcissism or something like that, it's like it's not really charity, is it? If you're doing it for yourself, right?
Yeah, and how you often will know that is the people that do their works of charity for all to see, and we know what the Lord had to
Yeah,
say about that.
yeah, great parable
Um,
on that.
yeah, and Saint Paul, if I speak with tongues of angels, but if I have not love, if I do all these things and I have not love, then it is nothing. I'm just a clanging gong. Well,
Yeah, the
good.
the par the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector is
Oh yeah,
the
that one too.
with the Pharisee like going in and like shouting out his prayer
Yeah,
and all the things that he's done, and the collector's like, just have mercy on me, please.
yeah.
I'm
Well,
a
yeah, that's
sinner.
the other thing. I'm so glad I'm so perfect, unlike that person over there.
Yeah.
And it's, that's where pride comes in, and pride starts everything. It
It's original
messes up.
sin.
Yeah, it's a part of us, and also by doing spiritual reading, morning exercises, you need to work your physical muscles,
Yep.
and also you need to work your spiritual muscles as well. And I have found that the more I make it a habit in my life, not only through the grace of Christ and him helping me, but also there's just something about it, does you do get changed.
You
uh,
find that peace too, yeah.
yes, and um it's so hard to
And
do the
he
wrong.
definitely changes you.
Yeah,
I've experienced that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, and I cannot tell you how many times I've wanted to be so bad. It's like, I'm gonna get revenge on this person. I'm gonna say that awful thing. And I'm like, oh, you just can't. It's just because it's not, it's wrong on a
Say that Hail
natural level.
Mary, say that Our Father
Yeah.
right
Or
after those thoughts.
or I always tell people, beware. If you see me going overboard, being extra nice to somebody, it could be I was thinking of doing something really terrible to that person. Oh, look, she said something nice to that person out of the blue. Why did she do that? It's like, because I was thinking of saying something mean. Um, but that's interesting. So, since this topic is converts and reverts, you mentioned it a little bit. You said that when you and your wife joined your parish and all that. So, did you have any difficulty in acclimating? Did you ever maybe miss your old congregation? How was that fitting in? How was that
I think my
change?
so I didn't miss it. My wife missed it a little bit because she'd kind of gotten attached to some of the members there in the community. But
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know. I made I guess a couple, like, I guess you call them friends, closer acquaintances, I guess. And but I don't know. I didn't have any issues going to the new parish and settling in and finding new people. Fortunately, I was actually recruited after I obviously was there for I don't know, around a year. I did a program called Evangelical Catholic, and we met like every Saturday morning. It was led by one of the parochial vicars, and it was a lot of men around my age that also had kids around my like had kids around my kids' ages. So I was able to bond with a couple of them and form some friendships, and a lot of them still attend the same church. We're still around in the area, so still hang out with them, see them, and stuff like that. So that wasn't too difficult for me. But it took my wife a little bit to basically cut off ties from the Protestant church, but she's found a community now. She goes to a couple like so in our area it's pretty dense population, and we're in the Diocese of Arlington, so there's lots of parishes around us. So she'll split. There's a couple moms groups that she goes to. There's one on Monday and one on Wednesday. So she's made some good friendships through that.
Mm. Well, that's good. That's good to know. Eh, I think reverts have a lot easier time of it than converts, and in my case, when I was single, and well, I still am. I think it's a lot harder for single people to find their places when they go to any new church, but especially the Catholic Church, because a lot of the Protestant churches are very good at outreach to singles, not so much in the Catholic parishes, and
Yeah.
I think you just fit in so much better. It's like, oh, it's family picnic after mass. It's like bring your kids after mass. It's like, oh, dad's group, mom's group. There's a lot of that, and I missed that a lot. I still miss it. And sometimes when the priest during some of the blessings will like include single people, and it's like, pray for happy marriages, have that, and for single people. And I always go out of the way after mass to tell the priest, during the intercessions, the place where I'm at right now, this newer priest has done that. I tell him thank you. I say it's because you don't know how often we don't hear that, and it's very hard to fit in. And I remember being very, very lonely at first, and because I always joke that you go from the donut, coffee, and orange juice lifestyle, and a date every Saturday night. Basically, almost in Protestant congregations that I found, you couldn't get away from people wanting to hang out with you and be friends with you and ask you out. It was just very community oriented, and there's a reason why they are very community oriented. That's part of the tradition. And so getting away from that, it was like a culture shock. So I found that I had to really put myself forward, and I still do.
So
It's like, okay, I got to make my own. So I do.
yeah, sometimes the lady needs to lead those initiatives. I mean, I guess we have a very active Knights of Columbus Council too that I'm part of, so that helps too. I'm able to get some good bonding time in once a month on Thursdays. Have a couple beers at the council hall after the meeting. Kind of like catch up on people and what they're doing and stuff like that. And there's all kinds of different age ranges there. There's a lot of people that are kind of around my age. There's a lot of people that are a lot older. There's definitely a lot of people that are a lot older. So there's a good mix, and I know one of the guys he's single, and he seems to do pretty well. Does a lot of volunteer work with the council, but there's also, I guess, in the diocese we have like a pretty active youth, like young adults, I guess would be you would call it.
Hmm.
Um, Sports leagues, and he's pretty much like playing sports all year. He's got like volleyball. He's playing volleyball right now, so he seems pretty active in a lot of that stuff when he's not at work and work for the Navy. So
Yeah.
I, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's like I don't know. I don't really have that experience because I'm married. I have my wife and I
Yeah.
have my family, so
Yeah.
it's hard for me to kind of talk to that because I that's just not my
Yeah.
experience.
It's experience. Yeah. And well, and that's
I
good. And
will
more
say
power to
though,
you.
I will say when I guess when I was like I feel like that was something I guess I was missing, and probably one of the, I mean I don't want to say it's one of the reasons, but um like I did feel like there was kind of like this like I didn't I when I went to public high school, I like kind of lost a lot of that stuff, and that was I think probably where I was living at the time was pretty much it's suburbia now, but at the time it wasn't. It's very rural. It's been built up a lot now, but it was very rural. It wasn't really close to anyone, and the church that I attended didn't really have a lot of. They didn't even have any like youth group kind of things. So in order for me to go to like a youth group, I had to like travel like 30, 45 minutes to another parish. So I definitely think that can be an issue. I see that, but I think the parish that I'm at now is just very active. We have a really strong pastor who I think does really want to get people involved. He's well, like we do a lot, like the parish puts on a lot of community events. We're gonna have like a fiesta, I think, coming up this Saturday or maybe next Saturday. The diocese just had a big like diocesan fair. Unfortunately, wasn't able to go. I was really missing out. I was down in North Carolina visiting my sister for my niece's second birthday. But they stuff like that, and then they do I think monthly wine and cheese things as like a date night. So like you can be married and go to that. You can be like a single and take a date to that too. With like then the pastor brings out his jazz band and they play jazz. He plays like the saxophone and stuff. He's got a couple other guys that play with them. So they do all kinds of different things like that. Very, very strong parish. And then, and again, the Knights are very active, and there's lots of other community groups too. There's like the Filipino like group. There's a Hispanic group. Like, I mean, there's all kinds of different groups within the parish too. So I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I obviously I live in a I live in a very kind of like suburban urban area here in
Yeah.
Northern Virginia.
Well, and there was a change that happened because, and maybe it was all our fault because a whole bunch of Protestants came into the church in the 90s, in the 80s, partly because of John Paul II, partly because of Scott Hahn. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I follow Scott. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Scott. Well, because he was a Presbyterian minister
Right.
who had all that great training from being a charismatic Presbyterian minister and brought
Now his
all
sons
his.
are becoming priests.
I'm sorry?
His sons are becoming priests
Oh,
now.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. And so when he came in, he was able, first of all, he used his skills to explain to Catholics what they were supposed to believe, because I think sometimes Catholics, even cradles,
Yeah.
they take for granted. They're
Not
like,
very
well,
good catechesis.
terrible at catechesis. And so they just take it for granted. Of course they know. They went to Catholic school, don't they know? And then they realize no. And then this huge, and it wasn't just him, of course, it was people like Patrick Madrid and Carl Keating and Catholic Answers, and combined with Mother Angelica and TV,
Yeah,
that
EWTN.
it created this huge like burst of conversions. And so when I came into the church, I was part of that crowd. There wasn't anything for youth or young adult ministry, and I was one of those that kinda helped start that because, like I said, I had
Right.
to make it on my own. The only problem is that the problem we're still working on is what happens if you're not a young adult. That's what
Yeah.
we're working on now. It's like, "Wait a second, what if, how do you do that outreach there?" But especially what you said about not only his kids all becoming priests and sisters, they're making all these babies, and I think that has really transformed the
Yeah.
church, especially the church here in America. I think Scott Hahn said once that there was a joke where it was something to the effect of, "Oh, well, the you can take." Oh, his seminary took it was an old Carmelite seminary. It's like, "Yeah, I went to the seminary." He's like, "Well, it's okay, that seminary still gave us all of our Catholics and our priests," and because,
Right.
this outpouring of conversion that happened. And yes, they're becoming our priests, they're becoming our sisters, they're becoming our nuns and our teachers. I spent a very good long time in education there, as well as um, apologists and workers on the front lines. It's been something very good, but
He's got a new building that he's um, constructing for the his center, St. Paul Center.
St. Paul Center for Biblical Studies. Yeah, if
Yeah.
you yeah. I remember people were all like, "Why didn't he become a priest or a deacon rather?" And it's like, obviously he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. And yeah, as
Yeah,
far as
Dr.
finding
Taylor
younger people.
Marshall like chose not to either.
Yeah,
So
because we're forgetting that the calling to the priesthood is a calling. It's not like a job or for that matter to become a sister. Because I can't tell you how many
it's a
people are like,
vocation.
yeah, it's a vocation. It's like, well, you're single, so that means you're supposed to go be a sister. And I run across that sometimes with some very devout Catholics who I'm like, you're just because that's what you think, that's not actually what the church teaches. It's like, no, it is a vocation.
Right.
It's something completely different. It's and that you can in the church be a preacher, you can be a minister without the ordained part, because what we believe about the priesthood and the diaconate is different. We believe it's a sacrament. It has all sorts of other fun stuff.
Yeah, we're
But
all called to evangelize.
yeah, and we're all called to our specific states in life.
Right.
So well, wow. I mean, I'm glad that you it sounds like you had an easy time of it, relatively speaking. Some people really go through the coals. I was one of those.
Yeah.
It's a very hard transition, and people are very hostile. They don't like you, and but I'm glad that it
No,
was nice for you.
church was very welcoming. Parochial vicar. Probably the worst thing was like my parochial vicar who taught the RCA class with my wife that was attending, that I was going with her every week, who was also the he was doing our convalidation. He was the one who was running the evangelical Catholic group. He was basically my spiritual advisor, and he was, I don't know, last year he was moved to another parish, and so like I haven't had a spiritual advisor, I guess, from the parish. So that's kind of something that I guess that I'm struggling with, is like the fact that they move priests so often
Mhm.
nowadays. Because I've been reading a lot of some of the older stuff, especially like Saint Martin of Tours, where they're kind of. I mean, Saint Martin of Tours obviously did a lot of evangelizing in pagan territories and stuff like that, but a lot of the times he was in his own diocese, his own parish preaching, and that's where he kind of stayed. So I don't know. That's probably like my biggest struggle, is just not having that spiritual advisor anymore. Because I was going to see him at least like once every 3 months or so to like talk about what's just how my spiritual life has been and just what my life was, and we became friends too.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of it sucks.
Yeah. Oh, no, I understand,
It
and that's one
sucks.
thing I also like about the church is that there's so many tools that you can have in so many different spiritualities. And I'm old enough that I have had some of my I call them my kids, and everyone I've taught, and I've taught public school and private school. I've taught daycare. They're still my children, and some of them have gotten married. I didn't even know it. I got a thank you note from two of my students from a play I directed, and that was where they met. They were 12 and they
Oh wow,
started
that's
dating, and
awesome.
then when they got married, they sent me a thank you note. It's like we would never have met and dated, and I've also had oh, I cried like a baby. Boy shows up at my doorstep, but he's not a boy, he's 30 and he's a priest. It's like,
Oh
"Thank
wow,
you, Miss so and
there you go.
so, by the way, remember
That's
when you
awesome.
said that to me?" And I'm like, "Don't you do this to me. Don't you do this to me," because of course I cried. So, there's many different things like that. I like that you pointed out about Saint Martin de Tours, and, like, this brings me to my next question, because we do have a tradition of choosing a patron saint of ours, usually at confirmation. Is there a
Yes.
if you want to share your patron saint, or besides your patron saint, is there one that you've speaks to you in a
Yeah,
different
so my patron saint is Saint Joseph, the adopted father of Christ.
Yay.
I don't know, at a young age I always wanted to be a dad, and I just felt like I really liked, I don't know, I picked him when I was
Mhm.
12, so he's been there with me.
There we go.
um, so yeah, and I'm a dad now, so of two, so that's really good.
Yeah. Well,
Um, I I do like Saint
yeah.
Martin of Tours though too. His biography by Saint Cipilius, I think is his name.
Mhm.
Wrote the biography of Saint Martin of Tours, and I really enjoy that. His story is very inspiring to me. I honestly feel like the thing that he's most famous for isn't the thing that he should be the most famous for.
Mhm.
Um, the Because he's most famous for cutting his cloak in half and giving it to Christ, who's posing as the beggar outside the town. He's rewarded for that. But I honestly find his resignation from the Roman military right when they're on the eve of battle against a German barbarian force. He's arrested, thrown in the brig by the emperor. I think I forget which one it is, who's there on the front lines. And but what ends up happening is that he's going to be like I think Saint Martin of Tours is like, yeah, strip me of all my clothes, whatever, put me on the front lines. God will protect me. It doesn't matter. Like this is no longer what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to become a priest. And what ends up happening is like that's the plan. That's what the emperor's going to do, right? The next morning. But what ends up happening is the Germans surrender the
Yay!
next
There
day,
you are.
and the emperor's like, it's a miracle, it's your fault, I'm so sorry. like actually, like I think he convert, like I don't know if he converts, but he's just he's clearly becomes a much more closer friend of Jesus Christ than what he once was. And I just think that's just such a powerful part of St. Martin of Tours' story that we don't really hear, or I hadn't heard until I read the actual biography. And there's a couple other times where he's dealing with pagans in their towns, and he'll go out and fast for like 3 days, and Christ will send a number of angels to help him, and he'll go back into the town, and no one stops him or rebuffs him as they did before, and he burns the temple to the ground, and then starts converting the people. So there's stuff like that where he's just very forceful, I guess.
Yeah. They're very hardcore.
Yeah, he's very hardcore. Complete faith in Christ as well. So yeah, I really
Here's a
like him.
question from
I really like
sorry.
Saint Jose Maria Escriva, the founder of Opus Dei. I read a lot of his works. I've got a couple of his books on the shelf back there. The Forge. I think he's got The Way as well. And then I listen to In Conversation with God, which is written by Father Francis Fernandez Caraval, who is a member of Opus Dei. Absolutely fantastic 7-book series. Daily meditations. Usually, I probably should read it. I probably should listen to it in the morning after I do my the morning readings, but I usually listen to it at night during our bedtime routine with the kids.
Yeah.
So sometimes I don't get as much as what I should, but because
Yeah.
like the kids and stuff. But I really enjoy him, and then I really like Padre Pio as well.
Oh yeah. Everyone loves him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunate that I heard the movie wasn't very good.
There's lots of priests recommending against it.
Yeah. How about
Which is
Saint
a shame.
Athanasius? I know why Meteor Advocate Timon is saying this, but
I mean, I've heard the name. I know I think they cite him a number of times in Conversation with God, quite a bit. But I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not super familiar with him. I know he's one of the earlier saints and a doctor of the church, but I'm not like extremely familiar with him. I'll be honest.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Now, I of course didn't have that experience as a little girl being raised Catholic, and I think that made it a little harder to find a good, if you will, a good saint. Meaning,
You still had saints though in Episcopalian church, right?
yeah, well, yeah, Church of Ireland and all that, but
Or,
not really,
yeah.
not venerated the way it would be. The saints tended to be just like ones that were either from the Bible or Saint Bridget, because I was there in Ireland. But
the saints before the split.
Yeah. Now, but part of it also is that children, when they go to Catholic school, it's a very part of the upbringing is these stories of the saints, because children like stories.
Yes.
And then you would dress up as a saint. You'd have a big saint parade, so you had a lot more experience. So I just decided to go with. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually purchased Andrew Lang's Voyage Comics, Catholic comic book publisher. They also publish fiction novels. They actually have a collection of Andrew Lang short stories where he's collected a lot of them, of the saints and stuff, and I read them to my kids at night sometimes.
Yay! Yay. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's some really good ones. They're cute.
Yeah, there's things
So
that
I
it's educational to me too, because a lot of
Mhm.
times I don't know a lot of these stories, and he's got different ones too. So like you'll read about Saint George, and you'll get the Eastern version, and you also get the Roman version of
Sweet.
Saint George. So it's really nice. I really recommend it.
Oh, well, okay there. So any of you that have kids, Ignatius Press puts out a series as well of children's books on them. So I took as my confirmation name. I just took Mary because the
Which one?
rosary Mary, Mother of God. Sorry, I
Oh, okay. Okay,
the
sorry.
Mary. And I remember I asked the priest. I was like, "Am I allowed?" And he was like, "Yeah, you can as long as it's a saint." Only because I felt like it was so not boring, but so obvious, and because
Is
y
it a
y
specific like apparition of Mary or just Mary, Mother of God?
um, just
Mm,
generally, well, as the woman clothed with the sun, August 15th
okay.
is something that's very important to me. So I guess it would be Our Lady of the Assumption, maybe?
Yeah.
But, j but I had such a great devotion to the rosary. I started praying the rosary almost right away. I just felt very it's
Compelled.
just such a good prayer, and the
Mm.
scriptural rosary, it's just you just so deep into the mysteries of Jesus's life. So I chose her, and
Do you use
but
a specific saint's instructions on how to pray the rosary? Because I know there's a couple of those out there. I have one from Saint Jose Maria.
um, not really. I just got some of those. It wasn't Sophia. Which press was it? Oh, it was a real old fashioned press that put out a whole bunch of stuff. So I got that, and but one person that really struck me after the fact, which you could probably guess, with all those showers of roses, I will spend my heaven doing good
Mm.
on earth. I will send down a shower of roses. I will make Jesus love as I am loved, and that no flower may compare itself to another. Each one is precious unto itself. None other than the little flower, Saint Therese of
Right.
Lisieux, doctor of the church. I would have made her my patron saint if I'd have known. I didn't know her
We have a
until sorry.
we have the only cafe in the entire diocese at my parish. I'm probably giving away where I go to church now, but
So
called the
everyone's
Little Way.
talking.
It's called the Little Way Cafe after Saint Therese. Yeah,
No way! Because the Little
yeah,
Way Cafe, I've related to her so much. It was like a few months after I joined the church that I read her story of a soul because someone told me, oh gosh, I really listen to how beautiful it is when she talks about the Eucharist. I was like, who is this person? And if you've not read the story of a soul, it will blow you away. It's one of those stories that you start off going, does this girl just need some anti-anxiety meds or something? As she seemed, she comes across being very anxious and she's always crying. I'm like, I relate to this woman, but as she matures and just goes through this journey into Carmel, as a nun and dies at the age of 24, and her writings are so profound that I still haven't gotten done reading all of her stuff. So I completely fell in love with Saint Therese. And then I found out, well, who Therese liked and who she was named after was Teresa of Avila, which is why I
yeah.
spell my name wrong. Everyone tells me it's Teresa when you spell it like that, and Teresa. And I said, I know, but you don't know Teresa of Avila. We call Teresa of Avila even though it's Teresa. And you think the little flower or something. Holy crud! Once you start to read that woman, the interior castle, I mean that girl, her autobiography. She was the one then that converted Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, the nun who was martyred at Auschwitz. So I one of these days I'm going to write a book called The Teresas because they are giants of theology, and I think Teresa Benedicta of the Cross Saint Edith Stein will be also a doctor of the church, and Saint John of the Cross also his writings in the Dark Night of the Soul. Um, the spiritual giants that these people are and their writings, they just blew me away, and they still continue to blow me away. So those are the ones that I really dig. And of course, I love me some Saint Joseph. Who doesn't? I mean,
Yeah.
what a guy. I mean, the guardian of the Redeemer, and how he just looked after Mary and Jesus and protected them. He was a spiritual man, sometimes considered a quiet man because he never says anything in the Bible. We're just told about him. So Joseph most humble, and then how when push came to shove, he saved their lives, took them down to Egypt, and then died what we consider a happy death. That's why he's the patron of a happy death, because it's assumed he died near Jesus and Mary. I
Right.
mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I also, I mean, I think I've even gotten a bigger respect just from doing a lot of readings with Saint Jose Maria Scriba, who really
Mhm,
likes Saint Joseph because he's all about sanctifying work, and that's what Joseph was. He was the worker, the carpenter.
mhm,
So I really find that's just a really inspiring message to me. Even though I'm not doing manual labor for my job for the most part, I'm not a carpenter, but I still find that I can sanctify the work that I do, and I definitely try and do that and incorporate my faith into my job now. That's something that it's just really important to me.
mhm. And you also have the honor of being Joseph to your wife and being Joseph to your children as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
And
obviously I like John. I like Saint John too, and there's so many of them, right? Because it's my name.
mhm,
Yeah, so
mhm,
usually it's
yeah.
usually it's like Saint John the Baptist. I find his story heroic. The fact that he's out there preaching in the desert, telling people to repent. He recognizes Christ, and then he suffers. He's one of the first people. I mean, he's not the first Christian to be martyred. That's obviously Saint Stephen, but he is martyred. He's martyred for his faith
Mhm.
by Herod, and he talks up. He makes it very clear that what Herod's doing is sinful, and he preaches it to him like almost every day, telling him
I
what
know,
he's
I can
doing
just
is wrong.
imagine him
And
driving people crazy.
the courage, the strength, and the fortitude to do that when you're imprisoned by this man is just astounding, and then truly given lots of grace, spiritual giant as well to be able to do that. And I really admire him, and then obviously Saint John the Evangelist too.
Oh,
His story is excellent as well, and then being being Christ's favored apostle,
eh,
I think, is as John actually writes, right? The beloved
yeah, the
one.
beloved disciple.
Um, don't get that. It's a little pride there, probably on that. But yeah, I really like his story that he too, like John the Baptist, he wasn't hiding, running away. He was there um, with Mary as Christ was climbing Golgotha and was crucified, and I think that took courage as well.
Mhm.
So I really I admire, and then obviously he was just all the ways they tried to kill him.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like,
it's
"He's
had to,
not dead yet."
yeah. So
We can't kill him, yeah.
so
Oh,
that
what a
there's that
guy.
too, and so I just find that really powerful.
Mhm.
And then I named my daughter after Saint George, so
Oh.
I really like Saint George's story, and that's one of the stories that Andrew Lang writes about
Mhm.
in his book. I can't remember the title of it right now. It's down. It's on my bed nightstand. But yeah, I mean, I see Meteor says Saint George is the patron saint for Corinthians. There's a statue of him in the team's first training center. I love all the depictions of Saint George. I love the artwork that's shown of him. I think I have like 3 or 4 holy cards that I share with my daughter on that. So
Yeah,
um,
and I think it's cool. That's one of the things that, since Brazil is still, in many ways, culturally, spiritually a Catholic country, the fact that their football team has a saint as their patron. Not all
oh, that's
soccer teams
awesome.
have that. Yeah, that's Corinthians. Maybe I should have made that clear. Corinthians, that's the name of his football club
Oh,
in
okay. I
Brazil.
I thought he was talking about like the
The
people of Corinth.
Corinthians. No,
Yeah, like
no, it's a football club.
like
So
okay, the Greeks. He's the patron of the Greeks too. I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, but I think that's awesome. It shows that their faith, and that they. So Saint George apparently really cares about their their season. And I think it's a great devotion that they have. And I only know
I
Corinthians.
love it. I mean, Christ, like, why wouldn't Christ and the saints want to take part in a good competition?
Darn right.
Mm.
One of my favorite jokes, it was definitely a dad joke that the priest would say when I lived in up north. He would always talk about Notre Dame during the sermons and how they were doing, and he says, "People always try to complain to me every now and then and say, 'Jesus doesn't care about Notre Dame and how they do in their football games.'" And he says, "That's right. Jesus doesn't care, but his mother does." So, that's all there is to it, and loads of good
Yeah.
jokes. Now, one, that is incredibly powerful to me, especially because of my studies and my journey that I made, and actually was a major part in explaining to me some of these answers to sola fideism, sola scriptura, and some of those things that made things go awry, in my humble opinion, in Christendom in the 1600s, and that is none other than St. Thomas More.
I was gonna bring him up. I was wondering if you, yeah,
Yes, you were waiting for me to. I mean,
yeah,
because you know how I mean, tell. I'm going to put the floor to you to talk about St. Thomas More.
yeah. So I'm not. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm an expert on St. Thomas More. I kind of know his general story. He was one of the advisors to Henry VIII, and was actually one of his top advisors. Devout Catholic, from what I understand. He when he was imprisoned by Henry VIII on some trumped up charge, basically because he wouldn't recognize his marriage to Catherine. I think was that the second one. I
No,
always get it wrong.
his marriage to Anne. Well, what he
And
did
okay,
was
yeah,
he required an oath of them all, and not only was he an
that's right. And he
advisor,
refused to give it.
he refused to give
Yeah,
the oath that he was head of the Church of England,
right,
and he was a chancellor, which is like the
right.
prime
The
minister.
top
Yeah,
advisor.
the
Yeah,
top
yeah.
advisor next to the king himself.
And what I found really interesting though too was that when he was thrown into the Tower of England, he literally was wearing like a hair shirt because he wanted to suffer even more.
Mhm.
Um, which is just talk about strength of character there. And then obviously he was executed for his faith and died a martyr
Yeah,
at the hands of Henry VIII.
yeah, and
But
what I
he's now the what? He's now the is he the he's not the because St. George is the patron saint of England. What is he the patron saint of? I'm
lawyers.
lawyers. Okay,
Yeah, and he and Saint John Fisher were canonized together because Saint John Fisher was the only bishop. I mean, you think we got problems with our bishops? Out of all the bishops in England, the only one bishop stood strong and refused to take the oath, and that was Saint John Fisher, and he also paid
and
for it with
yeah, I
his
was
life.
he was executed too. Yeah,
Mhm.
I remember that. Yeah,
And
you're
what
automatically a you're automatic. Like, doesn't the church teach that if you die a martyr, you're pretty much automatically in heaven?
Pretty much, and that comes
Yeah,
from the scriptures, when Jesus
right.
like, "This day, you will be come to me in heaven," and when Saint, Stephen, when he was being martyred, how he saw Jesus holding out his hand
Right.
to
Yeah, in
him.
the Acts. Yeah.
Yes, and well, what struck me about him was, well, for one thing, and I've read everything, literally everything that man has written, uh, because he was such a good defender of the faith, though not a
St.
perfect
Thomas More.
Saint Thomas More, yes.
Okay.
Sometimes a little, yeah, not well, Saint Stephen was good too, but, that he sometimes his language would get a little too strong maybe, and they in recent times people have been trying to smear him a little bit. There's been this new stupid awful show.
People are smearing St. Thomas More.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
called the whatever hall, Wildfell Hall, which it basically makes him out to be this psycho, and
okay.
it's
Well,
just
it's not the Catholics that are smearing him though, right? It's
no, and,
yeah. Okay.
the, Man for All Seasons, of course, is a very accurate portrayal in my humble opinion because it shows him warts and all, and, believe it or not, The Tudors does a very good job with him as well, but yeah, they've been trying to in the last 5 years. I wonder why, because
Yeah.
he is also known as the defender of an individual man's conscience. He was
Right.
like, "You cannot coerce the conscience." He would even say, even as much as, like, the quote, unquote, "heretics," you cannot change the conscience, that the conscience is sacred, and he knew more than he knew, because it was very much influenced a lot of the development of the true separation of church and state. A lot of people misunderstand what that really means. They think it's, protecting people from the church, when it's actually protecting the church from the government. But yeah, so he really struck me. And the fact that when he goes to get executed, the fact that all he had to do was just give in on that one little thing. But he was like, but if I do that, I what does anything else matter? If I take an oath that's a lie, especially a
Right.
lie about, it says, no human, this is also where he was above his time. No human can take on the spiritual role of the church. No human, no man can do that. And it was only Peter, and only Peter because it was given to him, but even he didn't have that kind of godlike power that Henry VIII was trying to do. No man can
It's
be
the Holy
head.
Spirit.
Yeah, no man
First makes that
can be
clear
head of the church. Yeah.
Right before the ascension.
Precisely. So it just really, really struck me. And I sometimes wonder if he didn't have a role in a lot of things, because this is a lot of what he did convinced me intellectually as well as spiritually, and gave me the courage to leave behind my friends, my boyfriends, all of that stuff, to join the church. But man, I'm tearing up. Darn it.
Have you
Gosh darn
read
it, St. Thomas More, stop it. But when I was
have
a
you
little
read
girl,
any Father
when I was
Jacques Philippe?
no, I don't know. But in any case, I actually visited his grave when I was a little girl, and
Oh,
I sometimes wonder, how much was he kind of rooting for me up there in heaven? You just never know. And
Lots
I'm just,
of lots
yeah.
of people rooting for us that we don't know.
Yeah, and that one day, the joy that we will all be reunited, not just with the loved ones we know on earth, but we will be reunited with all of these. And I just wanted to say, I just kind of got moved to we're talking about Hebrews 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a crowd of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and burden which clings so closely to us, and let us persevere and run the race that is set before us, keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus, the pioneer, a perfecter of our faith. And that's the communion of saints from the Bible. And it's like, therefore, because he's talking about the people that went before us, and this
right.
is the book of Hebrews. So it's like, that's what these saints are for us, and it's just so powerful. I'm an emotional
That's
woman, so I want everyone to know I'm okay. I just get emotional.
Right. It's
Yeah.
okay.
And sorry, and who did you talk? You were about to talk about another saint, Saint Felipe?
Yeah. No. This is is a priest,
Oh,
French priest. His name is Father Jacques Philippe. He's written a bunch of things. He's got a
yeah.
really excellent book called
Mhm.
Interior Freedom that my pastor has recommended numerous times.
Mhm.
I've read it. I think that the whole thing is like just chock full of the Holy Spirit talking to you.
Mhm.
Just excellent stuff. And I got this other one too that I'm supposed to read. I haven't read it yet, but this one's called Time for God that he's written too. So they're not that big either. So it's like you're not gonna like. I started reading some of it because he was doing homilies on them, but
Yeah.
we were actually traveling a lot, so I didn't go to a lot of those masses in my local parish. I was doing it in where we were traveling at. So
Well, cool. All right. So, any other saint you want to plug?
yeah, so Saint Francisco.
um, from Fatima, I
Oh.
definitely have a close connection with him. Obviously, I feel like I have a close connection with Our Lady of Fatima as well. So that's my son's confirmation name. He's already been confirmed, and so yeah, I have a close connection with him too. I don't know if I really want to go into why, but yeah,
No,
I do.
no, that's cool. Yeah. And wow, good stuff. And of course, underlying all of this, of course, is our relationship with Jesus. We love Jesus here. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
We are Jesus advocates in this, but it's
They're
definitely.
guides and examples to lead us to Christ.
Mhm. And what I also love about them is, if you think that you're walking this journey alone, or if you're thinking, okay, let's just say you're one of
Yeah,
those that
we were just
you,
talking about Saint Francis, right, of Assisi, and all of
that's what I was
his.
thinking. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. So And Saint Ignatius of Loyola, he was very worldly.
There's a whole book called by by Saint Augustine, right?
Mhm.
Where
Oh
he talks
gosh,
about
Saint
it.
Augustine. Yeah, he
Yeah,
tells us all. And I'll tell you what a
there's a guy
jerk.
named Saul in the Bible.
Yeah, Saul. Yeah, he killed Christians. So if you killed any Christians, don't you feel better about yourself now? And I told you I kind of like Therese because she was a little bit neurotic. It's okay, it's all
Yeah,
right to be a little Saint Cecilia for the musicians. Um, and there's something for everybody, and that you can. We have such rich spirituality. I talked a little bit about Carmelite spirituality. You got the Franciscans, you got the Dominicans.
nation.
Yeah, and yet, like you said, you've got the Opus Dei thing going on.
Yeah,
Got the charismatics. You have like the ordinary form of the mass. You can have the extraordinary form of the mass. I'm sorry, Francis, ain't gonna go away. Pope Francis,
I
and
mean,
all of
Saint
these things.
Benedict made it clear, well, like, what was the church taught, and like, didn't he have some kind of, I don't know what the word is that the proper term to use, but he said like what the church believed in the past doesn't just go away. It
Yeah,
still believes it.
yeah. Pope Benedict XVI. He did a. See,
Right.
this is the other thing. He did the motu proprio
That's it.
about that, and he also
Yeah.
did the motu proprio about the ordinariate as well, the Anglican use. So, for some reason, Francis hasn't touched that one, but yeah, it's like, listen, pal. Which is why, again, I think that there's some breaks being put on, and for very good reason. But that while you have all these different spiritualities, it's all still one faith.
Right.
Oh
One
man,
apostolic faith, as
yeah,
we say in
they're
the
talking.
creed.
Yeah, hey, they're talking about food, sweets
I
made with
know.
corn, cakes, puddings, mulled wine, caramel apple. Yeah, stuff your grandma would cook in a wood stove. Yeah, at
That
these
looks
saint
pretty good.
things. Yeah,
What's your favorite? What's his favorite? I wonder what his favorite food is that he gets there.
food as well. Yeah, okay. Right,
Because I actually, when I studied abroad during college, I studied abroad in Switzerland, and they actually had the remains of one of the saints in the church that was there, and I just that's like I regret a lot of things that I did when I was over there that I should have been doing, because I
Mhm.
clearly just wasn't practicing the faith at all. But there's literally a saint there on display. His remains are on display, and I wasn't even going to mass or anything like that. But I did go to the festival where they have like a parade and everything like that, and that was just like that was a really fun time, and you just get to see all like the kind of food and everyone that's coming out, and like the dancing and stuff like that. It's really cool. I really like that. So that's something that I feel like you might I don't know. I feel like we don't really see that as much anymore here stateside. Maybe in some smaller towns that have um, some strong like ethnic populations still. Maybe if there's like a strong Italian group, strong Irish
Mhm.
population still. They might still have some more like that. But I do feel like that's something that Europe still has a lot of that stuff that we've kind of don't have over here.
True, yeah. I was lucky enough to live in a place where there was a very strong Italian parish, and they had on St. Joseph's feast day, they went all out. Think of that scene from The Godfather,
Oh
part
yeah, yeah.
2, when they're
The
we
the
did that.
baptism.
Yeah, no, not the baptism. In The Godfather 2, when they're carrying the big statue, and
Oh,
then they have
okay.
and
Yeah,
then they're
yeah.
putting all the money on the thing.
Yes.
Um,
Okay.
everything except
Procession.
for the execute them shooting everybody. That that's what would happen at these. I mean, it was really awesome, and they
Oh, in
still do it.
Italy when they're in Sicily.
No, no, no. It's a scene in The Godfather 2 when Vito Corleone's gonna go kill that one guy, and they don't hear him because they're all
Oh,
celebrating.
yes,
Yeah,
he's on the roof and he's following the guy
yeah,
who's on the street or whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank
yeah.
you. Sorry. I'm
All
like,
out there,
what
and
is
The
this?
Godfather
Is this
3
gonna
shows
there in
it too.
Sicily?
I wish. Have you had a chance to go to Rome? Did you get to go see?
I've been to Rome twice. I went to Rome in
Mhm.
2005. Um, visited the Vatican, and then I went back in 2009. I'm ashamed to say that again. This was a time when I wasn't practicing my faith. I literally didn't go inside St. Peter's.
Oh, that
I'd
hurt.
been because I was like, oh, I've been in there. I've already been in there. Like, I don't need to go in there again. Like, what was I thinking? I actually fell
Oh,
asleep outside, like sitting on like on like one of the ledges. It was just I don't know. I think back on it now, and it's like God was like giving me peace, even though I didn't
yeah,
go
maybe.
inside. But I did
Just
go into the Sistine Chapel
okay, good.
in 2009, and I actually think that the painting of Judgment Day is way better and more interesting than the more famous one of Adam and God.
Hmm.
I just think that's just more stunning when you see it in person,
Yeah,
because you don't really see that. You have to look up, right, to see the painting on the ceiling. Like, and who like not many people
hmm,
are like, I don't know. You know it's up there, obviously, so you do look up, but I mean, for the most part, you're not looking up at the ceiling in a church.
yeah,
you look at you're looking at the wall that's behind the altar, right? You can't
yeah,
miss that. So, gorgeous painting. Really, the Sistine Chapel is just wondrous place.
yeah,
Wondrous place. Yeah,
yeah.
I've been to Rome twice.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. And until you've actually seen that art in person, you may have seen a copy of it and all that.
Yeah,
Nothing can. My father even says to this day that that is the most impressive thing he's ever seen. Was
it
being in there, that
it
art.
is.
Yeah. It,
It,
you,
I would probably say that too.
yeah. It's
Maybe
unbelievable.
maybe the architecture of I'm gonna St. Marco's in Venice is might rival it, but like as far as a painting, Sistine Chapel, like there's no comparison.
Yeah. It's you're in
But
another
I do like the
world.
cathedral in Venice though. The
Oh,
cathedral in
yeah,
Venice
it's
is
gorgeous. It's like the difference between, okay, listening to a really, really great piece of music, and you're like, "That's gorgeous. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful." And then you listen to Mozart, and you're just like, it's just blown away. It's the
yeah,
exact same feeling that no artist that man's was touched by God, Michelangelo, and there's
yeah.
no other way to say it. So go see it if you can, people. Have you ever seen
And
any popes? Oh, sorry.
in person, I don't think so.
No.
I've seen like the car driving away. I think I was there and I saw the car driving away, but I don't think he was in there. But no, I
Okay.
haven't seen any in person.
Yeah, I had the blessing to see Saint John Paul II on Mass, Mary the Mother of God, in 1995 in the Saint Peter's Basilica. I got in there with thousands of others, and that was something I don't think I'll quite forget.
I have been to a couple masses with bishops though. So so wife's family has a lot of my wife's family lives down in Florida, and we just happened to go to the closest parish to us in Lakeland, and the bishop happened to show up that day.
Yeah.
so
Oh,
that
yeah.
was pretty cool. And
And I'll
then
tell you, yeah, sorry.
my local bishop actually went to elementary school with my mom. So
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh, we're old
that's pretty
enough. Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, and when you are in the presence of a bishop, it is odd. It is very odd that you feel that apostolic succession.
Yeah.
It's weird, and it never feels. Even if it's a bishop that I'm thinking, I don't like you very much, but you feel the office, and I always like to point that out to people as well. That Judas, there's a reason why Jesus chose Judas. You think he didn't know that Judas was going to betray him, but
Right.
when to show us, hey, we're going to have Judas priests, we're going to have Judas bishops, but after Judas, offed himself. What did they do in the book of Acts? They said we must fill his office,
Yeah. With
pointing out
Barnabas.
the office was what was important. So
Well,
even though he
I
was crummy, his office still holds.
I think that's so a lot of people miss that, and I think that was the gospel on Sunday was the fact that the disciples and the apostles were granted a portion of divine power from Christ to go out, heal the sick, raise the dead, drive out demonic spirits, and Judas was clearly given that power as well. It
Mhm.
wasn't just Christ doing a lot of this stuff. I mean, I think there's a couple of times where like there's one time where the disciples come back and they're like, we couldn't like I don't understand what's going on. We couldn't do it. And he's like, ye of little faith. And then I think he goes and I think it's the dog like the girl, um, the
With the
like the girl that
demons?
no
No.
I can't remember. I think it's the girl that he brings back to life.
Tabitha?
Is that her name? I'm not sure if that's
I
her
don't
name.
know. Maybe that might be
Um,
tradition that it's her name. Oh
yeah.
gosh. See, I've said before that we know the stories. As Catholics, we just don't tend to know the chapter and verse because we're used to
Yeah.
hearing these. We hear them at mass, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but the disciples came to him and it's like we failed and like because clearly they had been doing that too, right? It wasn't just Christ
Mhm.
doing that, and I think that's something that I don't know. I feel like a lot of people don't like recognize or realize, or
Mhm.
they skip over it. But yeah, Judas was going out there healing people too, driving demons
Mhm.
out of people, doing everything that the other disciples and apostles were doing as well.
Yeah. And I have opinions about probably why a lot don't perhaps recognize that because it can put a little chink in the armor of the sola fideism argument, which we do not hold to. That what you
No,
do, that you can be saved and then you can sin and fall away so badly as Judas did. Because if it was once saved, always saved, Judas would not have been able to
right.
have done those great works and then fallen away so badly. He just would have been because the
and
fruits.
the scripture makes it clear too that we have that very definitive comparison between Judas and Peter.
Mhm.
Judas clearly knows what he's done is wrong. He goes back and throws the money back at the Pharisees, but he doesn't go back to God seeking forgiveness.
Mhm.
Whereas Peter obviously denies Christ 3 times,
Mhm.
which I don't know which is worse,
Yeah,
denying
both were
Christ three
bad.
times or betraying him.
Yeah,
I don't
they
know.
were equally bad. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
So, but Peter recognizes that he's also what he's done is wrong, and but he seeks forgiveness
Mhm.
of what he's done.
And don't you
Um,
love the way Jesus goes, Simon Peter, do you love me? It's like, yeah. Do you
oh, he asked him
love
3 times.
me? Yeah,
He does a
three
penance, right?
times
It's
for
literally a
each.
penance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the penance. Yeah, you see exactly. I explain it to people. It's like that Jesus, the penance for your sin, if you will, and that penance is. And also look at the point that Jesus was making for each of the times he betrayed Jesus. He gave Peter the opportunity to affirm him, to proclaim
yeah,
him
I
again,
love that.
to make up for what he did during that betrayal. So he didn't let it go, if you know what I mean.
Right,
That Jesus tends to hold you accountable, but in a very loving way, because it's someone that doesn't love you that lets you go into your error. It's an act of love to bring somebody back. If you really don't
right.
care about someone, if you really don't love about them, you won't care if they stray off the path, if they go and do all sorts of things. It's like, fine, do it. Question. What are your thoughts on the current pope? We did actually answer that, Timon. We wish he was more prudent, but he is still the pope. He's a successor to Saint Peter.
Yeah, and he's not like again, he's not he's still human as well, right?
Mhm.
So um the bishops have their own responsibilities and as well as do the pastors of their parishes, and um even with the suppression of the extraordinary form, I mean he does give it to the bishops to make that decision too, right? So um at least that I've seen that's how it's been interpreted in some cases. So um but yeah,
Yeah. He's trying to push back because I think he expected more bishops to maybe not be as liberal with the mass in the best sense of the word. But yeah, that's getting into some nitty-gritty. The world over with Raymond Arroyo has done a very good job in covering this story. And the Apostolic Signatura under Benedict the 16th, Raymond Burke, does a lot. I I think I've told you before that I met him on several occasions and been able to talk to him. Uh,
Cardinal Burke, is that who you're
yeah,
talking about?
yeah,
Yeah.
he is the man. He is the man.
Yeah, I've read a couple of his things and I really enjoyed it. He's very he gets to like the way he writes, he like cuts right to the heart of the matter.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've shared this on Father's thing, but I have shared this on my Catholic explaining. He also went straight to the heart of the matter with me. I got the finger of not judgment, the finger of
Oh,
a small rebuke from him because
Like a finger wag.
it's close.
Was
It
it like
was during
this?
we were yapping there, we were all having tea, and I was kind of upset. I felt like Benedict and some of them should have been doing more to encourage us about what was going on with the administration from 2009 to 2016, referring to the
Right.
mandate, the HHS mandate. And I said, I'm just so frustrated. And it's like, if you all won't do a thing, what do we do? It's like I said, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And he looked at me and he goes, didn't you tell me you were a music teacher? And I go, yeah. And then he just looks at me. That's what you're supposed to do. And I went,
Yeah.
oh.
Great.
He's
I
like,
think I think you have told that story on Father's
yeah.
Prayers, by the way.
And I'll tell you what, it was gentle, it was kind, but I felt like Jesus himself and Moses was coming down with the 10 commandments and ready to throw them down. Because it was like, you told me you were a teacher.
I was just watching that scene from the 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston, and I really like that. When he comes down and he's like sees them worshiping the golden calf, and the guy makes all these like arguments that you see pretty much everywhere today about freedom, and it's like, who are you? You probably wrote those rules to become a prince over us. And Moses is like, there is no freedom without the law. And then he like, smashes the. I mean, there's a couple more back and forth. Then he like throws the tablets at the calf, and the earth erupts underneath of it and stuff and like that. And it's just a great scene. I'm just like, yes. Even they understood in the 50s.
I'll tell you what, though, I relate so much to
freedom.
Moses. I relate so much to Moses on that. I can't tell you how many times I've just wanted to throw it down like, you. Oh, I hate your gut. So we've got some snark in the chat. What could you expect from an Argentinian, says Timon. Oh dear. The South American.
I know there's. I mean, obviously, I know there's like heavy criticisms of him. I've seen it from priests, and then there's criticisms of his entire order too. I've seen from priests. So I don't know if we want to get into that, but
no, we don't want to get too much into that. It just cracks me up to no end, because sometimes people will just go Jesuits. And we know Father Ted, the father
from
Father
the
Miller
TV
always
show?
likes the show. Yeah, the TV show, which is hysterical. There was actually a scene where a priest was just so mad. He was like, it's because of he uses the F-bomb, Jesuits. And I'm like, how did they know that was the meme for our time? Because there's another Jesuit causing trouble on Twitter.
Yeah, what's wild is the Jesuits were the ones who evangelized to the New World over here. The Spanish and the French. They were the ones that came over here to evangelize.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Well, Satan always goes for the generals, right? You get the general, you get the rest.
If you stray, the orders usually die up. I mean, we're seeing that too. So,
and the ones that aren't are growing. When I decided to test my vocation, and also was being a bit selfish because I just wanted to hang out with them, the Nashville Dominicans, they have like a weekend.
That's who instructed me in kindergarten through 8th grade.
No way!
Yeah, they St. Thomas. It's called Stars now, St. Thomas Aquinas Regional School, but it was just called St. Thomas Aquinas at Our Lady of Angels in Woodbridge. They they run that school.
Though I'll tell you, they were the most awesome chicks I've ever hung out with. I mean, you've never partied till you've hung out with some sisters for the weekend. Oh my gosh. And I remember thinking, I'm not called to be a sister, but if I were, there was someone else that I drove down. It was when I was in college. She was thinking of being a sister. So it's like, okay, let's go together. And I'm like, I get to live with the novices for a weekend. And, because there were music, they were teachers. So I'm like, okay, this is perfect for me. Yeah. I'm so jealous you were taught by the Nashville Dominicans. And
there's like 4 or 5, I think, since I was there, because like I think a couple of them got reassigned and stuff like that. I was well acquainted with one of the principals.
Nice. And I'll tell you
I
what.
don't know. When I say well acquainted, I mean like I
Oh, that's
was
how rumors get started.
No, I was visiting her a lot because I was a troublemaker.
Yes, understood, understood, and of course, we love Ancient One, thank you for being here. Um, but,
There's
they are
there's
beating sorry.
yeah, there's a show called Markham, this Catholic show. Guy, like he's really tall, but he dresses like the Riddler for some reason. But he actually does he has a whole video where he visits the Dominicans in Nashville, and as much as being taught by them, it was really interesting to see. I never knew how they like lived or anything like that. So that was it's a really nice video that my daughter likes to watch too, because it's
Nice.
made for children. So and then even it's very highly educational. My wife even learned a lot because she didn't like, and probably be honest here. I didn't really realize that the difference between a sister and like a nun, and
Mhm.
how one are like cloistered and others go out into the world and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
like those definitions, they mean things.
yeah. I found that the nuns and sisters care more about it than we do, 'cause
Yeah,
often we use them interchangeably, and
yeah,
the nuns are like, "The sisters don't have to give up what we do," you know,
right.
because sisters can even have, depending on the order, even, have allowances and all that kinda stuff. Um, the Nashville Dominicans, they also have recordings and music, and some of it is so gorgeous, just beautiful,
Well,
beautiful music.
on the Markham show, one of them plays harp. It's gorgeous.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And to
enjoy
the
it.
point there about they're beating off the vocations with a stick. I mean, they can't build buildings big enough for all the new novices and all
Their
that.
property is gorgeous too. Like
Oh, it's huge, it's gorgeous,
beautiful
but
in that
but they
video.
branched out and all that. So when people say that religious orders are dying, it's like some are, and I wonder why. But the ones that are faithful and true to their vocation and true to all of that, like I said, that's where people
Yeah,
are
my
going.
our diocese is getting like really strong vocations. I think we had 8 priests that
Mhm.
were received holy orders just like 2 weeks ago
Yeah,
this year, and I think we're gonna have like another 8 next year. So just
yeah,
it's
it's
really
happening.
strong, coming from strong families, strong parishes.
And
Um,
if you have
yeah.
perpetual adoration,
We
you
have
will have vocations.
the Poor Clares literally live like two
Poor
blocks up
Claire's.
the street from the parish that I attend.
Yeah. Other
So
ones yeah, other ones that have stayed strong, well,
and we do have
most of them
perpetual
have.
adoration.
Mhm.
We have a chapel.
Yeah, the Poor Clares and the Carmelites, the cloistered Carmelites, and
Hmm.
again, depending on the congregations, but yeah, the Carmelites, because it's really hard to be a half Carmelite. Um,
Right.
and yeah, and this is a good
Funny.
point of sorry, go ahead.
I just got a funny story with the Poor Clare. So like I called and I was like, hey, do you guys need any do you need any help? I would like to help provide some assistance. And they're like, oh, they called me back and they're like, oh, since you're a man, we'd like you to get us some like light bulbs for this thing. And they had like specific light bulbs that they wanted.
Nice.
And like you have no like that was a pain. Like I was running all over the place trying to find these light bulbs. I went to Home Depot, I went to Lowe's. Home Depot had them, but like it was the last box, and you could tell like clearly like it sounded like maybe some of them were a little bit broken, but I had enough that like it was been okay. But this, so like I brought it over there, like you don't like they're cloistered, so you just put it on the thing. So they're like, call back and like, I think they're broken. Can you take them back? And I was like, okay, I'll take them back. But because you don't know how many are broken, right? Like
Yeah.
you only hear maybe like it could have been just one, because they wanted a bunch, because I guess and they're like the industrial lights, like the long ones that go up in like light fixtures.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
And so then I go to Home Depot and they're like, yeah, we're not. I don't even know when we're gonna get the next ones in. We don't have any more. I go to Lowe's. I talked to the guy at Lowe's and he's just like, yeah, we don't even carry that size anymore with that wattage. And I'm just like, oh, well, I don't know what to do now. Like,
You're
how much
gonna
does it get
fail
these
the
light bulbs?
nuns.
Yeah, how much does it get these light bulbs here? And then so I'm like calling them up like in the Lowe's, and I was like, this guy recommends this. He says they can go in, and so I'll bring over like 10, and if that works, like you let me know, and then I can go back and get the other 10. And I don't know. The last time I heard from them, they like said thank you and like sent me a card and everything, but they didn't ask me to go back and get the other 10. I think they felt bad for me because I was going around and getting all that stuff, but. I really enjoy their presence. Obviously, like you don't see them because they're cloistered, but you feel their presence when you're praying and everything like that. So
Sure. And
you
some of
know
them
that they're
are,
praying
what do
for
you call
you.
it? There's some they do have extern ones, like their special job is to interact with people. Like one or
I
I don't know if they
I
still
don't.
use those. I don't know. It depends
I
on when
think
they
they
order
might
them.
have had maybe one person doing that because they did a video
Mhm.
when one of like because like there was like a WNBA player that like joined. I think she just became like a full nun. Like
Yeah, her
she
final
just
vows.
yeah, her final vows. But she joined like a couple years ago, and they like did a whole video about it because it like made national news that this WNBA player decided to become a cloistered nun.
Mhm.
There. So but like they don't show them. Like the video is all at their feet, and they're just like recording
Mhm.
the audio. I did see one of them when I was praying one time, but like I didn't see their face or anything. But you just see them like walking behind the tabernacle because there's like
Mhm.
I guess they have their like the tabernacle's like kind of in the middle, and then
Yes.
there's the open public uh, chapel area where I could go in and pray, and do mass, and then they're like behind, I guess
Yeah.
that behind it there's like a
A grill.
screen, a
Yeah.
grill. Yeah, there's a grill, and she was cleaning, so like she had like a giant like brush thing that could like reach all the way up. And so she was like cleaning everything. So I could see, I saw her walking around like
Mhm.
cleaning everything, but I
Yeah.
didn't talk to her or anything. But I obviously talked to the one on the phone. Like she was communicating with me on the phone.
Yeah, and like I
But
said, there's usually, like, one, designated. I had the pleasure of going to the Carmel, where Saint Therese was in Lisieux, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay for the Liturgy of the Hours because I had to catch a
yeah,
train, but yeah, it's very much like that, and I'm like, "That's where Saint Therese was, for crying
right.
out loud." Yeah, I
Did
think
you
Chris.
get to see her her room? Because her room, from what I understand, is like really tiny.
Oh, yeah, they call
Mm.
them cells even. Yeah, they're tiny,
Right.
and, I have, saw her relics, her hair and her habit and her shoes, because they knew almost right away that this gal was special.
Right.
They all felt it because of I think the manner of her death was so intense that they were like, "Whoa, we got something holy going on here." Um, Chris.
So I just wanted where you're talking about other saints that are important to me, and I can't believe I didn't bring her up when we were talking about it. But Saint Gianna Beretta Mola is obviously very important
Mm,
to my family as well. We actually went up to we took a we did a pilgrimage to the shrine that they have it's in Pennsylvania. So we went up there, and it's not like it's within a church, but they have like a little shrine there within the like the church there. Talked to the woman, and we actually like she was in communication with Saint Gianna's daughter as well. But we were able to um, like touch her relics and everything like that because
ooh,
they have lots of her relics because I think her I think her sister like decided to like take a lock of her hair before she was like buried for whatever reason.
mhm.
And
Well,
so they have that, and they started distributing that. But that was like really important to us during my wife's second pregnancy.
mhm.
um,
Yeah, and for those that don't know, Saint Gianna, what happened with her was she was diagnosed, I think, with cancer
yeah,
while
she
she
had
was
cancer.
pregnant, and she chose the life of her child.
Daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, it turned out, yeah, her daughter, and so that's the daughter that lived, and, she's
She just
definitely a
her
powerful
daughter
witness for
just
pro-life.
her daughter just spoke at the March for Life this year too. So that was like a
Sweet.
really nice surprise too to actually like see her in person because she's like been
she texts this she texts the woman who runs the shrine, who would then would like forward the messages to us. So like she was clearly praying for my son, and well, we didn't know he was our son at the time because we
Yeah.
got surprised, but she was praying for our unborn child and us as well. So that's someone that we're that's also like very important to us, and we have a devotion to her.
Yeah. Wow. It's very powerful, especially in these times. Crescent makes a good point, and it comes to something that I probably should say too. Crescent says, I will only say this: the Jesuits took my grandfather into their orphanage when he was a kid, so he was grateful, and so am I. And I would say back to that there are many great Jesuits, even today, that are fighting the good fight, that are good and holy priests.
Yes.
Uh, I'm thinking with Father Mitch Pacwa, oh gosh, the guy who founded Ignatius Press. I got to meet him. Got to talk and meet with him. These are very good priests, and the priests that are serving silently, and I guess it's the order as a whole. Some of their leadership and their public face right now is a bit scandalous. So
I
if
can
I'm
agree with that.
Jesuit bashing, I'm not really talking about the Jesuits. There's many good
Yeah, they're the one
ones.
again. They're the ones who evangelized the New World too. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's 3 of them that were martyred by Native Americans, French
Mhm.
priests.
Oh
Um,
boy, you want to talk about some
yeah,
hardcore
yeah.
perseverance? Yeah, very very powerful witnesses. And like I said, Father, have you ever met Father Mitch Pacwa?
No, I have not.
He does a Wednesday night show. He takes over from the show that was Mother Angelica's, and
Oh, okay.
good and holy priest and fighting the good fight. He's an educational, he's great. Gosh, what is the name of the guy who's the father of a Ignatius Press? But he is amazing, an amazing priest. I got to meet and speak with him as well. So it was John Rutter, Father John Rutter. He did a lot of good
Recognize that
books.
name.
Yes. So yeah, they're good. And just like anywhere else, you'll find there's good and bad in everyone. um, all right. Before we go on to the roll 7, so things are going to lighten up here a little bit. This has been a great conversation. Oh gosh, I'm just so happy to talk about something that's so close to my heart and obviously close to yours. Do you
Yes.
have any last thing to say about any of this, about anything or anyone listening or people that'll be listening on the replay that you would like to say at this point?
Yeah, I guess if you're interested in learning more about Catholicism, one of the priests that I've actually been following that I think is extremely knowledgeable, he calls it going back to seminary, is Father Chris Alar. He also has the Divine Mercy show on EWTN, but he has a YouTube channel, is the Divine Mercy channel. He's got these like hour and a half, sometimes 2-hour lectures where he really does deep dives into um, Catholic theology and catechesis. Again, like he says, he calls it going back to seminary, and I just think that his stuff is really well done, and it's stuff that I find extremely knowledgeable. He's really well researched, and I really like how he presents it, and it's very engaging for a lecture.
Mm, excellent. And we mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. The St. Paul Center for Biblical Studies,
Yeah, with
that
Scott Hahn.
Scott Hahn and all of his work, amazing work. Also, Catholic Answers. What I like about Catholic Answers is if you have a question, they'll give you the Catholic answer. So if there's something you want to ask, they will answer it better than I would. They really know their stuff, and they also have a website. And of course, just go visit a church, find a church nearby, spend you know
Yeah,
time
God's
with
there.
Jesus.
His
Yeah,
he's
before.
present in the Eucharist there. It's
Yeah.
always welcome. That's the one thing that I will say I was a little bit disappointed when I've been traveling. Some of these churches are like closed in the middle of the day, and I'm like, what's going on here?
Mm.
Like, why can't you get into the church during the middle of the day? I would have thought that would have been open, but um,
Well,
yeah,
there's reasons for that. I'll never
yeah,
forget.
yeah. I know there's like security
Yeah, I
reasons
know.
and things like that, but just a little bit surprised.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, I know.
unfortunately, um, but I guess what is it? They knew him in the breaking of the bread.
Yeah,
That's it can't really get much. more of that. And let's move to the roll 7. So this is okay. So we've had all our serious talk. Maybe we've had some drinks. I don't know. I just have Diet Coke. Now we get on to the
Gatorade.
portion.
Some water.
Gatorade, stay hydrated, everybody. That's the most important thing. Great. Now I can't find the stinking, the darling questions, rather. I think my dice got in the way. Oh, my dice are in the way. This is called Roll 7. This is where we have 20 questions and a d20, and I roll it 7 times. You let's see. Everyone in the audience also may participate if you would like and answer. So I'm going to start with the first roll. The first roll, it is okay. I need to get out my reading glasses. You're on the hot seat now, sir. Tell me something on your bucket list.
I want to go to Mexico City and visit the. I'm probably gonna blank on the name, but where
Our Lady Guadalupe?
Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Hey, that's doable too.
Yeah, I also want to. So I listen to Father Rocky, Relevant Radio. I probably want to go participate in his March to Mary that he does every year in May. So I want to do that too.
Oh, well, you heard it here first. Nice. And I can't believe it. I rolled the same number. Everyone go get the lottery.
I can answer that again. I want to go to the Daytona 500 too. So,
dude.
So yeah, there's.
I've been. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know where my parents live because I always take pictures. That's where I go every 2 weeks. Oh dear, this is a tricky one. Uh-oh. What are you most afraid
of? Probably being a bad dad. Like that's probably a huge fear. Being a failure as a father.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
Oh, mine go to US and visit my friends. Yay! Is it sad I don't have a bucket list? No, that means you're very satisfied. Wow. Well, gosh darn it! Look at you being a good person. Okay.
I pray that I won't be a bad father. Like that's one of my top prayers.
Yeah.
So.
No, and that's a great prayer to have. I'm sitting here thinking of very shallow things, so I'm ashamed of myself. All right. What is your favorite movie and why?
I was actually just reading Francis Ford Coppola was asked this question, I guess the other day, 2 days ago. And he was like, that's like, I have 1,000 favorite movies. It just depends on, it's hard to pick. You can't pick one. I don't know. I'd probably say Con Air though. That's the film I probably watched the most. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I'd probably say that's probably like my favorite film that again, it's probably the one I've watched the most. And I don't know. I really like the fact that you kind of get a little bit of redemption story with Cameron Poe, and how he, even though he might be a criminal and everything, he's still doing what's right. He chooses what's right. So yeah, I like Con Air.
Nice. All right. Dag nabbit, go to get the lottery. The number is 10. 10, 10, 10. Right. What is the most immature thing you do?
I mean, immature thing. I mean, I don't know. I like being a dad. Like, I don't know if I want to share this, but so my kids like to like, I'm a horse. I become a horse. So I play horse with them. If that makes sense.
Aw, that's cute.
Yeah.
Aw, proof she has weighted dice. I wish.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's cute. I have this. I was like, oh, that's a good dad. That's a good dad. Okay. What's your favorite excuse when you're late?
I don't know. I try not to be late, but I don't know. I don't usually give excuses. I'll just tell you why I'm late. I don't know.
My favorite answer so far has been like I was knocked into an alternate dimension. It was said by an Irishman, so it was so brilliant I couldn't take it. Traffic, yeah, traffic. See, that's usually true.
Yeah.
Immature.
Probably traffic.
Yeah, I still like dancing in the rain. Another one was I was hiding a
Oh,
dead
I don't know if
body.
that's. I don't know if dancing in the rain is really immature. Is that immature?
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
awesome. Put chocolate milk in my cereal. Ooh, yeah. Hey,
Oh
I
no,
endorse that.
chocolate milk. No.
It's been a while since
Okay.
I've had chocolate milk. My goodness.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with one famous person, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Probably Christ, right? He's God.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's probably cheating, right?
yeah. Besides Jesus.
Right. Oh, let's see. I don't know. There's a lot. I like. There's a lot of interesting characters now. Probably Saint Martin of Tours. I'm really fascinated by his life, and the things that he did. It would be really interesting to talk with him. He'd either have to be blessed with the gift of tongues, or maybe I would be, so we could communicate with each other, because he probably speaks some kind of German dialect, maybe French. I don't know. I don't know if the French was Romanized at that point yet, but he's probably speaking a German dialect from maybe
Yeah.
Latin. I don't know. That I probably want to meet with St. Martin of Tours. Yeah, I
Oh,
really like.
that'd be cool.
I came as far as like a non-Catholic person. I don't know. I guess he is Catholic, but Charlemagne would be pretty cool too. So
Oh, Charlemagne.
yeah,
Yeah. That's badass. Yeah, I guess I would assume that God would give us all the gift of tongues so we could
yeah,
talk to each other, or like the Star Trek Universal Translator. Actually, the Holy Spirit was the first universal
that's right.
translator. And Stieg is lying. I do not put hamburger and Snickers bars in my coffee. I do have
Oh,
Snickers flavor coffee. Don't have meals with Jesus. It'll be your last supper.
well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Gee, okay. Hey, we are not going to have lightning strike my house. It's only going to strike your. All right. And
Memento
last
mori, right?
Tesla, Nikola Tesla. Okay, 15. Oh wait. This is the final one. Where do you feel most out of place?
Most out of place. Uh, I don't know. It's probably any kind of like. I'd probably feel pretty out of place at a college now. Like if there was like a bar at a college town or something like that. I don't know, at a club, I feel really out of place at like a dance club now. Like like the club, like not like the clubs they have today. I don't know. Probably feel really out of place there. Yeah, parties with loud music and dancing. That's pretty much what I'm talking about with the club and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I probably
Yeah,
feel
I
out of
think we're
place
all the
there.
same. I think we're showing our age. It's like
Yeah.
we're all like, yeah.
Like,
But
don't get me
although
wrong, I'm not against like dancing or anything like that with my wife or anything, but I wouldn't want to.
yeah.
I don't know. That's not a place we would go on a date or anything. So
Yeah, we're a little too old. They would think we were the chaperones or something.
I'd rather go to like a bluegrass festival or something like that.
Ooh, yeah. Gosh, good time. So I do swing
Yeah,
dancing. Yes, swing dancing.
seems like nightclubs are like it seems like I'm in what's the word I'm looking for? We all have the same place where we be out of place, nightclubs, big parties.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't be like the big parties. I'm not against. Like if it's like the baptism from the Godfather 2, like that, I would have a lot of fun with that. I think.
Oh yeah.
With the polka music and all that stuff, that would be fun. Like a wedding and stuff like that. Those would be fun. But yeah, nightclub definitely is probably.
Yeah, weddings are a blast. Well, when they have good music. The best wedding I ever went to was a Filipino. That reception, oh my gosh, I've never had a reception like that ever, and I don't think I ever will again. We all took days to recover. They had unlimited sangria, and that's all I got. and we danced for like 7 hours, and I had heels, and
Oh, you didn't take them off?
no, because I'm an idiot.
Everyone takes them off now. They
I know.
dance barefoot or in their stockings.
Yeah. Well, I think I thought I was supposed to do, but I don't know. It was crazy. Yeah. Yeah, Secret has a secret video. That is how rumors get started, Ancient One. Steve has no secret video. Neither am I. I never liked nightclubs. Yeah. Um, Filipino parties are fun. Lots of good food. You see, that's the other thing. And I didn't know it was going to
They
last
got
for
pretty good food.
7 hours.
That is, they're partying the night away there, huh?
Oh, yeah. It just didn't stop.
Yeah.
They bear their souls
Steve with
their
the
puns.
jokes, the puns.
I just can't. All right. Well, okay. That's the end of our Rule 7, and I want to thank you for being here. I am so glad, and we are going to try to get together again for our streams with Father Miller. If we have to do it kicking and screaming, we need to all get back together again.
Yeah, hopefully. Maybe do it once a month or something like that.
Yeah. So where can we find you, John?
Yeah, so I've got I started a new channel, John F. Trent, where I'm covering stock car racing. I started, I guess, 2 weeks ago, not last week, but the week before. Having a lot of fun doing that. Just kind of these short, like 3-4 minute videos once a day, covering kind of some of the things that I find interesting about stock car racing. And then obviously I'm the editor-in-chief at Bounding Into Comics, so you can find us at Bounding Into Comics on YouTube as well. I'm actually putting up 3 videos a day over there, except for Sundays. And then boundingintocomics.com is the website that we run. So always writing stuff over there, usually Monday through Friday, sometimes a couple articles on Saturday. Just did one this past Saturday, but don't do any on Sunday. So those are the places you can find me. And on Twitter, at Bounding Comics is our handle. My personal handle is at JF Trent, and it's pretty much I just post a lot of Catholic things, and then I've been sharing my YouTube videos from the John F. Trent channel. So those are the top places you can find me. I think I'm up to 7 subscribers on the John F. Trent channel, so we're on the up and up there.
Oh, yeah, I need to look that up because I'm a family of, well, not a family of, but fans of stock car and racing. That's part of the reason why my dad retired to where he did. He and Dale Earnhardt, you would know this about Dale Earnhardt Jr. He was at not only at that race, he was at that turn. That's where my father's seat was, him and his friends.
Oh, nice.
And so it happened right in front of them.
Oh, where Senior died?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you were like, nice. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, they were there when he won. And they were also there when he died. Yeah. Right in front of him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was my dad's favorite driver, so it's very sad.
Dale Earnhardt Sr. was lots of people's favorite drivers. I was not a fan. I was like many of the drivers who were like, he can wreck me, but why can't I wreck him? Everyone boos me when I do the same thing that he just did.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, I know. He wasn't entirely popular. They called him the Intimidator.
Yeah.
As you know.
We called him Bonehead.
Yeah. When I finished reading that's okay. When I finished reading the Malazan books, you and I need to have a chat about them. I'm not sure what those books are.
Yeah, the Book of the Fallen of the Malazan Empire is a series written by Steven Erikson. I think there's like 10 of them in the main series, and then he's got prequels that are going out. I think I still have to read the last one. I haven't read the 10th book. And then I've only read the one of the prequels. It's been a while now, but yeah, I recommended those to Steve. He's been reading them. They're I really like them. They're really good. You can tell there's like heavily there's a lot of Christian influences in that book. Basically, so there's different like worlds, but they're run by different gods that have seats. But they're all connected because of the sacrifice of this one old god. And so now his blood like kind of channels everyone else's seats. There's some interesting things to it. Obviously, obviously I think that's like kind of some Christian influence, but there's obviously some other influences as well too. But it's pretty good high fantasy, I think.
Well, there you are. You heard it here first. Okay, yeah, I just subscribed to your NASCAR channel, or not
Yeah,
NASCAR, rather, a stock car.
stock car. Yeah, you got to watch the one about the Cars Tour race. That was one I was actually there on Saturday. That was one of the best races I've ever seen. It was awesome.
Ooh,
It was
that's
so it was so great. You can't ask for a better finish. That was such a great race.
that is sweet. Well, dang it. I'll definitely enjoy watching that.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think I've got it here. Steek says it is complex as heck. Stop steep leading curve 2. I'm rereading book
Yeah,
1 to give
it
the
does.
theories another go. All right. Well, there you
Yeah,
go.
book one's probably one of the more weaker books. What I like about the Malazan books is that you don't actually have to read all of them to kind of know what's going on. That you can read them almost as like a standalone. Obviously, though, like it helps if you read them because there is some like backstory and there's like some of the characters obviously continue across. But I mean, I do think you can read them as standalones without having to know the background, which is really good. The best one I think it's 4 or 5. It's like the one where they cross the desert and they're being pursued by this like new fanatic, these new fanatics that worship like this wind god that is just like kind of cropped up. It's like a new cult basically, so it's really interesting and excellent. I think that's like the best one. So I know I don't really cover F1. I'll be honest. It's like I'm doing like local stock car racing here in America. So I'll be covering NASCAR news, and then I'll be covering like the Wheel and Modified Tour. I haven't done any of that yet, but I'll probably be covering some of that because I really like watching that. And then I'll be covering the Cars Tour, which is the top late model stock car tour here in the Southeast. It was actually the late model stock car division was founded at Old Dominion Speedway, which is my local racetrack before tore it down and turned it into a bunch of townhomes. So I go to Dominion now down in Thornburg. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm going to cover. I might cover some of the ASA stuff, but I got to get a subscription to Racing America because I think they cover a lot of that stuff. Fortunately, I do have a subscription to Flow, so I'm able to watch a lot of the late model stock stuff, and I cover some local tracks too, mainly late model stock division, South Boston, Langley. Probably cover some of the stuff that happens at at Bowman Gray because there's always kind of like crazy drama happening there. They call it it's not called the Madhouse. There's a reason why they call it the Madhouse. And yeah, it gets wild down there. There was some absolute bonkers things happened last year. Dude was like going through. So it's an actual stadium. The university there actually plays football in the fall. So that's why they have to end their season like in August rather than go a little bit further as like other tracks do. But there was there was like one of the stock, like one of the yeah, I think it's the street stock division. One of the guys was really not happy with the other guys, and he was like chasing him through the infield. It's pretty wild stuff.
Yeah. No, I remember the old days where they used to at the end of the race they'd get out and just have a fist fight. And who was it?
They still do that.
Yeah, number 80. It was 88. No, 88 was Dale Jr. Who was it? Was it 20? Whatever his name is, where you would see then his team like holding him back because it's like, no, don't do it. You're gonna get penalized. Don't punch him.
I'd say Jimmy Spencer was probably like the biggest guy when I was watching in like the 90s. He was like the guy who was, they called him Mr. Excitement, and he was the guy that was always mixing it up in the Cup Series.
Now I know it's not stock car, but have you ever been to the Indianapolis 500?
I have not. I don't really watch Indy. Indy's okay, but
yeah. I'm not crazy about it, but I will say about it as a racing thing, but as for the actual race itself, it really is the greatest spectacle in racing. It is they put on a great show.
They don't have fenders. They can't beat and bump each other.
Well, that's true. That's true. Well, and you can't do that definitely in Formula One. I do like watching Formula One when I've only
it depends.
had yeah, because they would all kill each other if they tried to bump. they would like spontaneously combust or something.
I definitely admire what they do in Formula One because I've seen some of those videos where it's from the in-car camera, and I don't understand how they don't wreck all the time because they're going so fast around those blind curves and stuff. They clearly have done tons of sim training or at least memorization of all of the turns and stuff. Just wild. Yeah, they are.
The match.
There's nothing wrong with making left turns.
Yeah, darn right.
Drive fast, turn left. Drive fast, turn left. Nothing wrong with that.
Great. Well, I was going to say, and of course, you'll find me here in Miss Smart Muses, where I talk about what makes me laugh, makes me cry, makes me happy, makes me sad, or just really ticks me off. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be on Jacob Ironside's channel, where we're going to be talking about the Last of the Mohicans movie, and
great
then
it's my wife's favorite film.
Oh yeah, it's a good film.
Daniel Day-Lewis, excellent.
Oh yeah, we love ourselves some Daniel Day-Lewis, Madeline Stowe, great soundtrack too. Great
excellent
score.
Soundtrack.
Yeah, it makes you give up any illusion of saying I would love to live back then. It's like no, you wouldn't. And it's
gorgeous too. They filmed it in North Carolina.
Oh yeah, the scenery is amazing. It is amazing. I saw that in the cinema when it came out. I was in college at the time, so it was really awesome. And then on Saturday, we are going to be doing our penultimate Magician Master and book stream. We've been doing it for 2 years, and we are finishing it with Magician Master with an even 10. So that'll be on Saturday at 11 Central, and you will be seeing more musings with me, either that or some Teresa travels. I am so close to monetization; it's killing me. So I just need a little, just need some of those watch hours. I'm not far at all. It is very doable within the week. So please, if any of you wouldn't mind maybe giving some of my videos or some of my live streams a watch, I would appreciate that. It's been a long journey, but I'm at the finish line. So what's the we're not finishing it this Saturday though. 1 week after that. I said penultimate. Oh my gosh, do I know an English word you don't? I think I do. Finally, he knows English better than I do. And when this happens, I get really excited. Yes, it's the penultimate. Penultimate. He was.
I know what you're talking about. I didn't.
Yeah. This first. So in any
one
case,
before the last.
Correct.
Oh, he's not happy.
Am I busted? Oh no. Oh, how dare you, sir? How dare you? See, we're going to have a fight now. Watch Twitter. We're just going to sit around and cuss at each other for 10 hours, right? Because that's what you're supposed to do. Because, because we're obviously all 3 years old here. No, thank you very much. And thank you for everyone in the chat, even Steek and Meteor to Moon, Charlie Stevenson. Penultimo is the Spanish version. Oh, I'm in trouble. Chrysanth, Ancient One. Let's see, Puddin' Tame came in there for a while. My friend Maury, you'll probably be seeing her on my channel relatively soon. Riker 1776, Dadman Walking. And if I missed anyone, it's not intentional. The chat jumps and all of that good stuff. Yes, have a great night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Chrysanth. Thank you for modding. I don't know what's going to happen to me. But have a great day, everyone. Have a great evening, too. And be certain to, I don't know, be certain to go sub to John's new channel and learn about stock racing. There you are.